making of Newark's riot actually begins a full generation before the riots actually hit.
You know, I think we often mistakenly believe that it's natural that the inner cities be problematic and the suburbs be pristine in the United States, but it wasn't really so much God or nature that decided that. It's human decisions.
Mainly through federal housing, transportation policy, Newark was destined to become a city mainly of poor people, mainly of black people, where more and more upwardly mobile whites would be encouraged to actually leave the city.
After World War II, and certainly throughout the 50s, the whole image of the suburbs was pushed. You haven't arrived until you get to the suburbs, until you have your backyard, until you have your front yard, maybe 2 cars. You know, suburban tracts were subsidized by the federal government. You know, and the highways were subsidized by the federal government.
1945 until really into the 70s, the suburbs were white territory thanks to government action. It was not just white flight, it was also white people taking advantage who wouldn't of very advantageous lending policies. These things had not been available before the war to a wide segment of Americans. They were not available to black people.
You had the bank redlining under Roosevelt. Actually created maps where they literally drew red lines around a block with the presence of just one black person or one Jewish person would be enough to literally redline a block on the map, which meant there would be no mortgages given on those blocks.
Newark is written off by the people who are making these decisions. So they're really saying that Newark is not a good place for the federal government to invest. The suburbs are.
Block busting. Real estate developers busted up blocks because one black family might move in, scare tactics to get whites to sell cheap and then sell high to the blacks who moved in. The pitch was, hey, these colored people are moving in. You better sell now before your house value goes all the way down. And you get these people just to get scared. They'd sell their house low. But then those blacks who moved in weren't getting any bank loans. They wouldn't get any insurance on those homes. So that led to conditions which deterioration of much of the wood stick housing that Newark had. So it was, disgusting but fascinating from an economic point of view. When I grew up in the 50s, I can recall in my neighborhood, there were always places where people can get pretty decent jobs and establish yourself, have some kind of stability economically. Throughout the 50s, many of these companies, they moved to southern New Jersey or southern United States. So finally, we're at the point where companies just global monopoly capitalism just will take it wherever they can make the most money.
So here you are, a bunch of black folks up here looking for jobs in the industrial sector. Suddenly they got here and there was nothing here. It was like an old bait and switch routine.
All of those led to conditions that resulted in poor housing and poor health care and less job opportunities, which were why people felt disenfranchised, they were destabilized economically, and all of those things were what led to Newark in '67, or Detroit in '67, or Watts.
Children that they need nothing exterior to themselves to be happy. No person, place, or thing. And that true happiness is found within. Teach them that they are sufficient unto themselves. Teach them this and you will have taught them grandly. Teach your children that failure is a fiction, that every trying is a success, and that every effort is what achieves the victory. The first, no less honorable than the last. Teach them this, and you will have taught them grandly. Teach your children that they are deeply connected to all of life, that they are one with all people, and that they are never separate from God. Teach them this, and you will have taught them grandly. Teach your children that they live in a world of magnificent abundance, that there is enough for everyone, and that it is in sharing the most, not in gathering the most, that the most is received. Teach them this, and you will have taught them grandly. Teach Teach your children that there's nothing that they are required to be or to do to be eligible for a life of dignity and fulfillment, that they need not compete with anyone for anything, and that God's blessings are meant for everyone. Teach them this, and you will have taught them grandly.
Teach your children that they will never be judged, that they need not worry about always getting it right, and that they do not have to change anything or get better to be seen as perfect and beautiful in the eyes of God. Teach them this, and you will have taught them grandly. Teach your children that consequences and punishment are not the same thing, that death does not exist, and that God would never condemn anyone. Teach them this, and you will have taught them grandly. Teach your children that there are no conditions to love, that they need not worry about ever losing your love or God's, and that their own love, unconditionally shared, is the greatest gift they can give to the world. Teach them this, and you will have taught them grandly. Teach your children that being special does not mean being better, that claiming superiority over someone is not seeing them for who they really are, and that there is great healing in acknowledging mine is not a better way, mine is merely another way. Teach them this, and you will have taught them grandly. Teach your children that there is nothing they cannot do, that the illusion of ignorance can be eradicated from the earth, and that all anyone really needs is to be given back to themselves by being reminded of who they really are. Teach them this, and you will have taught them grandly. Teach these things not with your words, but with your actions, not with discussion, but with demonstration. For it is not what you do that your children will emulate, but how you are that they will become.
You know, there's a saying, in abundance of water, the fool get thirsty. In a Jamaica that, you know. In a Jamaica that. In the abundance of water, the fool get thirsty. It's a weird thing. And hearing and hearing and hearing, we say the abundance of water. And yet still when the rain fall, you hear people say, we don't have no water. Then want to the storage system. The system that's supposed to store water. The most important thing on earth for life. There's a story about King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, where Solomon make an arrangement with Sheba, say, you don't touch nothing in my house, and I would try to seduce you, because you know Solomon's supposed to be this womanizer. And him really want to seduce her, sleep with her. But she's very difficult because she say, sure, you know, I have nothing what me really want. And then I make a thing, I say, all right, you don't touch nothing in my house and I won't seduce you. And she say, all right. And Solomon put her on a big feast and tell them chef them to salt the food. Salt up the food. And tell the people in the liquor party, don't bring no liquid in the party. No liquid, no water, nothing. And when them done eat the food and the food salt, nobody couldn't have nothing for drink. And Solomon go in our house with a bottle of water, with a cup of water, and put it beside him bed. And this woman, after going inside, she get thirsty in the night and wake up and I look for some water. And when she look over Solomon's bedroom, she see the water upon him table and she go over there and she go hold on upon the water, so Solomon grab her upon her and say, look here man, oh you say, you make a pact with me, say you're not going to trouble nothing in my house. And she look upon him and say, but I just water. And him said to her, what is more precious than water under the sun? And you know, say, she get pregnant. That's another story. But the water is the next frontier of war. For those of you who love movie like me and watch Mad Max. Mad Max, the story of Mad Max was about water. The shortage of water and the need for have water. And these people who run with life don't understand how important. Well, them knows how important it is because them use it too. But the need and the impetus to facilitate the harnessing of that water seem to pass by governments and governments and governments. And we have the same problem every year where abundance of water and then little more we get thirsty. Rain a fall now. As a matter of fact, rain has been falling quite plentiful because there was a time when we set out May and October as rainy month. Now we see rain a fall April, May, June, July, now August, September. Now September and pure rain a fall on my yard. As a matter of fact, there's no time when no rain a fall on my yard. And sometimes people feel it's a joke when I tell them, say, you know, sometimes rain a fall in my yard and I go to the road, I don't see no rain, the place dry like what? I tell her daughter that the other day, that she say, Muta, you know, say me pass the yard the other day, it come like a true yard talk, you know. And rain don't stop fall in my area. I don't know if I'm my yard alone, because when rain fall in my house, I don't come out. So I don't know if I'm my yard alone, the rain fall in, but I would assume not. But water is enough now. I used to rain a fall a sentence since this morning when I come up here rain upon the road. So where all that water there? Where all that water go? In a Kingston when rain fall. What is these people doing to harness that precious thing named water? Serious thing. We have to figure it out.
Dr. John Henry Clark, elder statesman, esteemed historian, African scholar, world Dr. Clark. And while we're applauding, let's give brother and sister Herb Boyd a big hand. Amsterdam News. Herb, brother and sister Herb Boyd of the Amsterdam News. All right. Let us, certainly Dr. Clark needs no introduction, and we're just so pleased to have him here tonight with us, the UAM family, as we celebrate this joyous occasion, this historical event, this great night, and certainly the person who can give us a great interpretation of where we have come from and to where we are headed is our African griot, our African historian, our African scholar, our esteemed elder, Dr. John Henry Clark.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Most of my life I've been devoted to studying the position of African people in the world. I have used up all of my supply of tears and cannot cry anymore because of certain things we have failed to understand. There's a basic thing we have failed to understand is the difference between movement and progress. And when you fail to understand the difference between movement and progress, you fail to understand the proper use of energy and the strategic use of energy. And sometimes you think movement is success. One of my last books is called Who Betrayed the African World Revolution, and 6 other major speeches. And we have engaged in one of the most magnificent revolutions in human history, and if we are in a predicament over and above that of other people who are ahead of us and have not engaged in any revolution at all but political chicanery, and we have misunderstood the difference between movement and progress. If a cork is lighter than water, is thrown in the ocean on the other side of the sea, by virtue of being lighter than water, floats by virtue of the waves across the sea, and ends up 6,000 miles away, that is movement. If a cork had a heart, a soul, and energy, and human feelings, and swam across, fighting all those sharks and fishes, that's progress. And we made a mistake in looking at our own revolutions, some of the greatest in history. We have mistaken motion for progress. We're like a person lucky in a crap game, gambling with a monster. We win the pot, but we're afraid to pick it up. Too many times we have won, but we're afraid to pick up our winnings. My talk for tonight is a question. What happened to the African World Revolution? With the independence explosion in Africa, with the Caribbean Federation movement, with the concept of Pan-Africanism starting in the Caribbean, with some of the finest minds talking about African unity and African awareness coming from the Caribbean, and you cannot find any of that sentiment any place in the Caribbean. With Marcus Garvey coming from the Caribbean, and you can't even go to the Caribbean islands now and get a decent conversation on Marcus Garvey. Nobody's teaching Marcus Garvey in the schools of the Caribbean, not even in Jamaica. He's a national hero that his own people in the island don't even seem to know very much about. The concept of Pan-Africanism was started by three Trinidadians, George H. Sylvester Williams, George Padmore, and C.L.R. James, none of which are known in Trinidad. Nearly every radical in the Caribbean island was driven off the island. In the United States, and Black America became the beneficiary of these great radicals. T.A. Marischal, one of the few who lived and died there. Buzz Butler, who was the father of the trade union movement in the Caribbean island, lived and died there, but he was in jail most of the time. Here, an independent people, in their appearance, beautifully African, with a color fascination that's downright sickening, just love themselves some white folks. And yet, when they look at their own revolutionary heritage, the revolutionary heritage of the Caribbean people is the greatest heritage away from home. They fought longer and harder. And the two priests who brought off the Haitian Revolution, Bookman called for an African heaven. So if he met his slave master in heaven, he's going to slay him to pearly gates. And in his famous prayer, he said, get rid of these white angels, get rid of this white Christ. You ain't got rid of him yet. An illiterate slave couldn't read, but had enough intelligence to tell you, you cannot worship one image, be oppressed by that same image, and be free. Let's look at the beginning of this revolution in the 19th century and see what happened to it in the 20th century. If we look at this revolution, we're supposed to be not only free now, but need to go beyond surviving. Cockroaches survive. Ain't no achievement in surviving. We have to prevail. That's what we have done. But what have we done with prevailing? In the 19th century, early in the 19th century, when the Africans understood that chattel slavery was now being turned into the colonial system, a more sophisticated form of slavery, they didn't petition, they didn't go to Whitehall. They went to the field with spear and shield and outgunned some of the finest military minds of Europe. For 100 years, they did this. They didn't argue the point, they thought out the point. A young reporter called Winston Churchill, after the Africans had driven the British out of the Sudan and had defied the British right to move into the hinterlands of South Africa, wrote a book called The River War, about how the British reconquered the Sudan. Wrote another book about the patron saint of Somalia, Muhammad bin Abdullah Hassan, He said he out-Somalied all of the Somalians. This was a revolutionary Muslim. There was a revolutionary side of Islam, not an Arab-oriented Islam. The Mahdi in the Sudan was anti-Arab. And when the Egyptian Arabs came into the Sudan, he was a devout Muslim. He told the Egyptians, you are a bunch of dogs. You come here with the British trying to subdue your own people. And he beat the living hell out of them and chased them out there. This was revolutionary Islam. Wasn't that Arab stuff which is back at that? The Arab never left the slave trade. And he's still in the slave trade. Right now he's driving people out of Mauritania who are Muslims because they're not Arabs. He's killing people in the Sudan because they're not Muslims. In northern Senegal, he's back in the slave trade. And the Muslims, you come into this is the black man's true religion. You got any damn sense? You mean to tell me the black man had no true religion till 700 AD? You think I don't know history? But now, at the end of the 19th century, the Zulu wars were coming to an end. The Ashanti wars were coming to an end, led by a woman. Yea, Ashanti war led the last one. The wars led by Muslims along the coast of East Africa, West Africa. Sekou Touré's great-grandfather, Samori Touré, has stretched across French equatorial Africa, disputed the French movement inland. He fought the French so long, the French took one of his sons to France and trained his son. The son came back in the French uniform, fighting his own father. Old man came out of the bush and stood in front of his son's cannon. So the French have given you a new tongue, given you a new uniform. Let me see if they gave you any courage. Let me see if you got enough nerve to kill your father. Son broke down and cried, went back to France and drank himself to death. With men of courage like this, what are you cringing? I'm just dealing with Africa right now. Early in the 20th century, in Ghana, you began to produce men like Casely Hayford, African traditionalists. Casely Hayford was the mentor of Dankwa. Dankwa was the mentor of Nkrumah. In South Africa, ANC got started. Our main point is we have been continuously in revolt. We have never not been a revolutionary people. Why have we not told our children we have not been cringing cowards? We have stood up to this monster and made him cry. What has happened to that revolutionary spirit? If we did it once, why can't we do it again? What happened in the interim? In the Caribbean islands, where you had the most successful revolt because you had African culture continuity and African connection. 1807, the British understood that slavery was an unwieldy labor system. Now they got quick reputation as abolitionists. The British were never abolitionists. They were changing the system of chattel slavery into the system of colonialism. The Caribbean people understood that now that they are free, they have no place to work. They have to go back to the same farm, same sugar mills. Now they got to support their families. Now they got to buy their own clothing. Economically, some of them were better off as slaves. The British are getting that labor practically free. This led to the revolt at Moret Bay in Jamaica. These revolts again asked for reform. The mulatto group in Jamaica wanted to make a deal with the British that they would protect the British against the blacks. The British would not accept the deal. Then the mulattoes decided to join the blacks. Now the British understood and began to feed favors to the mulattoes to the point where they produced separate job categories for them, separate communities for them, separate little petty commission jobs for them, to the point where they became almost a separate race into themselves, and they ran the color game on them to the point where in Jamaica they are still basically a separate people. And they have enjoyed over 100 years of privilege based on color gradation without ever collectively saying, I'm against these privileges because I'm one of the same people. Unlike some of the coloreds in South Africa who told the South African apartheid government, I don't want to be separated based on colors. I'm in the same struggle as the rest of them. I want to be classified the same as the rest of them. Some denied this classification. Coming down to the end of the 19th century, the Jamaican Trinidadian lawyer, H. Sylvester Williams, found the Pan-African League and subsequently called the Pan-African Congress. I'm going to show that we were always aware of our condition and we were always revolting against this. This was the revolution, the civil rights movement in the making all over the world, that this was not a local American thing. This is part of a world revolution of African people. It affects Africa, it affects the Caribbean, it affects those in the United States. Until we stop playing these separate games based on geography, where those slave ships put us down, and concentrate on where the slave ship took us from. Until we stop playing this separate game between men and women. There was no separate auction block for the black woman. There was no separate slave ship for the black woman. She came over on the same slave ship. So we got to look holistically at our history in the world. In the fact that our life in Africa and away from Africa, since we made contact with the European has been a continuous revolt. And that different ones of us revolted in different ways. All right, early in the 20th century, God is producing a literature, a political literature. Casey Hayford's work, The Truth About the West African Land Question, when he's proving that land in Africa can neither be bought or sold, because of his understanding of the land tenure question. He saved West Africa from the large white settlement in East Africa, where the Africans did not understand that once he was giving Europeans the right to lease land, he was not selling it. The Europeans interpreted that as a sale. And in South Africa, the African was also giving the Europeans right to use land. And now, in South Africa, the Europeans have 87% of the land. The African was not selling land in the first place. He did not have the right to sell land. In African society, no individual has the right to sell land. Land is the collective property of the entire people. Traditional African societies operated on a socialistic basis not only before Karl Marx was born, but before Europe was born. African society did not have to wait till Europe came to introduce socialism, to introduce Christianity, because Africans had all of these things. They did not dogmatize them. They did not beat other people over the head with them. The mistake the African made, and the mistake African people still made, he accepted somebody else's interpretation of what he already had. And when St. Augustine heard about the European interpretation of Christianity, he said, these people make me laugh. They're giving us a religion we had 3,000 years ago. Which indeed we did. So if African people read more extensively in their own history, they could understand that they are worshiping a picture painted by Michelangelo 1,500 years before Christ was born. They'd understand that the early Madonnas in the churches of Europe were black. And some still are black. And that the European, especially the British, they would not only colonize history, they would colonize information about history. And that the most disastrous of all of their colonization, which cripple you and your children today, is the colonization of the image of God. When you look in old African languages, there is no word equivalent to G-O-D. I didn't say the African didn't have the equivalent of God. I'm saying he didn't use that word. I didn't say he didn't have any religion. I'm saying he did not use that European concept. And there was no separation between man and woman. While the woman's role was different, was equal in importance. There was no word for jail, because no one ever gone to one. No word for orphanage, because you didn't need one. No word for nursing home, because you didn't need one. You copped out, started buying all of this nonsense from abroad. Someone convinced you what you had wasn't good. You got to take what he had. His ice was colder. Now, when the European began to educate the African, he's not going to educate him according to African tradition. He's going to laugh at African tradition. He's going to laugh at African clothes. He's going to laugh at African values. So when this African comes home, whose values he's coming home with? He's coming with European values, European concept, European religion, and sometimes a European wife. He don't eat European food, African food anymore. He wants French bread or English bread. White wife, white bread. Now they captured your mind. You don't respect your sister anymore. You've fallen for all those images. You enter the O.J. Simpson syndrome before O.J. is born. You're all mixed up. And yet amidst all of this, great revolutionary thinkers are emerging, asking for the return of African traditions. In the Caribbean islands, their greatest thinkers are generally sent to the United States. Hubert Harrison couldn't have lasted in the Caribbean island a week. One of the finest thinkers to emerge from the Caribbean islands. Taught so many different subjects, self-educated man. Taught at Columbia University. Because Columbia did not want to be known that he's a man who didn't even have a high school education. Teaching at Columbia, doing it well. He was paid as working in the mail room. He introduced Garvey to his first audience in New York City. Hubert Harrison. His book, When Africa Awakened, published in 1922, is going to be reissued next year. Still up to date in what he was saying, especially about education. Great cadre of Caribbean revolutionists also was coming to emerge. J.A. Rogers. 50 years of research in the role of the black personality in world history. The Caribbean people are now involved in constitutional fight, cannot carry on the Pan-African Congresses. Now it switches to Du Bois. There's no fight between us. Understand that. When the Caribbean switched the holding of the Pan-African Congress from H. Sylvester Williams to Du Bois, there's no fight between Black America and the Caribbean people. One is more conveniently located than the other, and one has some facility that the other one does not have. This Congress did not switch back to them and the Africans until 1945 in Manchester, England. Now look at 1945 all over the African world. This is the beginning of the turning point, because when you look at 1945 in the Pan-African Congress in Manchester, England, remember, all Pan-African Congresses before 1945 were rehearsals. All Pan-African Congresses after 1945 were fakes. That was the turning point, because in 1945 in Manchester, England, young Kwame Nkrumah, the great mind of George Padmore, Amy Ashwood Garvey, Zeke of Nigeria, Peter Abrahams of South Africa, Johnstone Kenyatte, later Jomo Kenyatte, planned the future independent states of Africa, planned the structure of future independent states of Africa. It wasn't a Caribbean affair or an African affair or an African-American affair. It was a unified affair of African people from different parts of the world coming together, not fighting each other. After that, when they went to Tanzania, a bunch of fools arguing over different shades of Marxism. Well, the Karl Marxes and the Groucho Marxes got things mixed up. We still can't tell the difference between the two. I think the Groucho Marxes took over the meeting. Been confused ever since. But the great contribution that came from Nkrumah's mind on African solidarity, the organization of African unity, putting the African world together, holding a first conference of independent African states, the conference that led to Bandung. All of this came from the mind of a great Trinidadian, George Padmore. And when Nkrumah stopped taking his advice, started taking the advice of those mixed-guided Marxists, Nkrumah was going wrong. I see nothing basically wrong with socialism so long as you take the African variety of it. I see something wrong with the European concept of socialism, Christianity, and everything. I am boldly and unashamedly anti-Europe. Very clear about that. I do not believe that there are any European solutions for problems the European set in motion. All of this led us into World War II. We went into it with some kind of reluctance and misgivings. Too many of us had read about how blacks were treated in World War I. When the Secretary of War said to blacks, your lot will not be changed because you have participated in this war. And they were burning black children in bonfires in East St. Louis called the Red Summer of 1919. Marcus Garvey went to Chicago and began to rally the blacks and tell them, see, they don't want you here. Not only let's get out of here, let's get out of our own ships and get out of here. He taught us to dream again and to hope again. Now, Garvey was at the center stage of leadership until his arrest and subsequent deportation. After his deportation, the Depression set in. We had a revival of Garveyism during the Italian-Ethiopian War, and a revival of interest in Africa throughout the whole of the African world. People who brought into being the Ethiopian World Federation initially were mainly Caribbean activists. Then black Americans brought into being American Friends of Ethiopia, Willis Huggins. Nkrumah was a student at Lincoln and used to visit the old Harlem History Club. All of this was on the eve of protests asking for equal pay for black teachers. The fight for equal pay was developed into a fight for equal education. This was also extended into a fight for equal housing. Now we see a universal fight for some form of equality at home. The Africans who had fought in this war, they had been trained to kill white people for white people. Now this African coming home and looking at himself still being ruled over by white people said that if I have been trained to kill white people who are treating others with injustice, and you're still treating me with injustice, what's wrong with killing you? Now you see the African Revolution. In the Caribbean islands, the fight for federation, the fight to consolidate the efforts of all of the islands as against having them as separate entities. What stimulated this fight was the land question. The British put so much land called reserve land, and so much land called crown land. And the people who lived there didn't even have enough land to grow their food. The British had so much land in reserve, absentee landlords. This fight over land accentuated the fight for independence. What happened to this magnificent effort in the Caribbean islands? How did they cop out and cringe and became almost professional white behind kissers? What happened to their mentality? What happened to their memory of their revolutionary heritage when they had brought off some of the great revolutions of the world in the Caribbean islands, and some of the most successful ones? Why didn't they teach this to their children? Obviously they didn't. You can't get an African conversation almost no place in the Caribbean islands. England is our motherland. England has made it plain that you don't become a citizen of England by virtue of being born there. Had the concept of federation been successful, there could have been an economic union between all of the islands, a common tax structure, a common currency, a common defense. There had been no invasion of Grenada. There had been no invasion of Panama. There had been a common educational system. Such rich parts of the Caribbean island would be more developed. Jamaica would not be pawned in the hands of the World Bank that it is in the International Monetary Fund that it is. People wouldn't have gone in there right now and devaluate your money to the point where it take almost a barrel full of your money to get $1 American dollar. Become pawns in the international game when among themselves they could have fed each other. In the Virgin Islands, land that used to These people now golf courses and places for condos. Parts of the Virgin Islands they have to send to Up Island. I never knew there was such a thing as Up Island to get people to do ordinary work. Because the local men can make more money roaming the beaches and serving the unfulfilled, socially inclined white woman on the beach. I wish this was not true. And some of the rascals are becoming rascals. In the same profession. I don't know whether Africa's in the direction of some lady's leg. I never heard it be in that direction. Nor have I heard of a revolution being fought in that area. We threw away our great opportunities. 1954, the Supreme Court decision against segregation in schools. We didn't believe it then, don't believe it now. We were rather cynical about it. What did give us a little inkling of hope? The Montgomery bus boycott, the activity around the murder of Emmett Till, the rise of King and SNCC and CORE, Freedom Ride, the challenges, the sit-ins, our youth, getting their heads banged, going to jail, wearing blue jeans, living on $10 a week, the spirit of these young people, that was revolutionary hope. Then the anti-poverty program came along and a bunch of anti-poverty pimps began to buy into that and tone that down. By the 60s, the end of the 60s, the movement was a form of hustlerism. Coups and counter-coups began to overthrow some of the governments in Africa. Africans had been naive in thinking that the Europeans would let them take over all that gold, all those diamonds, all that manganese, all that platinum. Sheikh Anta Diop had told you that there are 5 or 6 river valleys in Africa that not only could feed Africa, but could feed half of Europe. That Africa didn't need nothing but itself. You cultivate the valleys of these rivers and you can not only have enough to feed yourself, you have enough to feed half of Europe. But Africans went abroad to study. What did they study? International man, such esoteric subjects that Africa don't need at all. Somebody needs to set these Africans down and tell them, if your land faces the sea, you need harbor managers. You need airport managers. You need people who can build a railroad system, a normal road system. You need schools. And so when you send people out to school, you send them to study what you need and not what they want. This is what the Japanese did. And the Japanese were fortunate. The Japanese never let people take them physically from their historical geography or destroy their concept of God. In Japan, the Buddha is Japanese. In Indonesia, the Buddha is Indonesian. In China, the Buddha is Chinese. Everybody paints the deity to resemble themselves except us. Inasmuch as Michelangelo and other Europeans took it upon themselves to give you a white Christ, and we got a lot of painters, good painters, how can't you take it upon yourself to give a black one, put some stained glass black ones? Is he less? Inasmuch none of us knew how he looked. He was born in that part of the world predominantly of African people. He wasn't European. The European has been successful not only in destroying the effectiveness of our revolution and buying off our revolutionists for pennies and a grinning woman sometimes. They've destroyed our hope, our aspirations, our possibilities, and our imagination. For people to be whole, they have to look holistically at themselves and the world and how they relate to the world. We have 100 times more than the Japanese started with. We have more land, more resources, and more people. How is it they could recover from the loss of a war, 2 atomic bombs, and now their enemy is begging them for commercial space in the world? How is it they can achieve all of this without one demonstration and one leaflet? Once they make up their mind what they're going to do, they systematically go out and do it. What you have to understand is that we as a people have to stop dreaming. There are no givers. We have to stop celebrating non-victories. You have to be strong enough to take back what has been taken away from you or stop talking about it. Nobody gives you back freedom. It's never secure that way. This is why you are dreaming if you think the end of apartheid means the end of white dominance in South Africa. They took that country in blood. That's the only way the African is going to get it back. No. Nelson Mandela is an interesting figurehead. He controls nothing that relates to power. He don't even control his chauffeur. We have to look at reality. Sometime next week, Phelps Stokes is going to give me the Agri Award for my contribution to clarity in education. I have written a small book for the occasion that I'm going to expand later to a larger book, for education for a new reality in the African world. We have to stop dreaming and look at the world the way it is, not the way we hope it will be. We have to look at the potential, and we have to admit, had we trained our children right, given them the right information, they wouldn't be killing themselves or killing each other. We fail to give them the right direction and the right message. We fail to say, after you get the integrated hamburger, then what? It was our job as adults to prepare them for the next logical step. And what was the next logical step? All over the world, nation management, nation maintenance. So therefore, in education, we have to educate them to do everything that gives them the ability to rule nations correctly, to defend nations, to support nations, to educate nations, to make their clothes. All this time, a generation away from independence, a revolution inside of our own minds. We need to give up something to get something. We need to stop wasting so much energy and argumentation among ourselves. We need to learn how to respect each other and keep promises to each other. We need to realize there's not a single African nation in Africa. They're all imitation European states. We need to build real African states based on African traditional values. There should be an African language spoken in the parliament of every single African nation. If the foreigner don't understand it, so too bad. You don't change your French when I go to France, and I don't change my Wolof or Zulu when you're in Africa. If you want to learn it, we can show you where the books are. And if that disturbs you, we can show you where the airport are. I say one of the main reasons why our great revolution got away from us, we had too much ceremony, not enough substance. And when our enemies discovered, we shouted black power before we learned how to handle power, period, black or otherwise. When they discovered that, we shouted nation time and did not know how to structure a nation, how to negotiate for a nation, and how to defend a nation. They knew that a lot of us were pimping in our liberation, and they didn't have to take us seriously. They'll take us seriously once we are organized enough to organize the wealth of Africa, the shorelines of Africa. Because wherever we are on the face of this earth, no matter where our bodies are, our cultural and political heart beats in Africa. So long as we recognize this, we can go to the ends of the earth so long as we know that our cultural heartbeat is in Africa. We're not less a part of other places, so long as we know there's a historical place that gave us our original birth that we have some loyalty and commitment to. And there's no use shouting about being black and beautiful. White folks know that. They knew that all along. They make cosmetics to make you more so and get rich. One of the reasons why they fear you is that not only are you black and beautiful, you are natural, like the seasons. And you don't have to put on any makeup to prove it, because God, your mother and father, gave you a sufficient amount. Properly counted all over the world, in the Pacific, in India, and other parts of Asia, Caribbean islands, South America, in Africa itself. There are 1 billion African people on the face of this earth. All the Jewish people in the world are less than 1/2 of the black population in the United States. They have more political power in the United Nations and in the world than all the African nations in the world put together. They got that political thing together. We don't have ours together. They make you cry over their 6 million. You can't make them cry over your more than 100 million. Because you do not know how to play the political game of victimship. And they have mastered it. Now, what you have to do is to first settle all these differences between yourselves based on geography, where you did not ask to be put down. And all of us, irrespective of accents and geography, come together as one people and make it be known that all of us have an African commitment, and make it plain to the Africans themselves, who sometimes need their heads screwed on right, that continent is the homeland of every African who walks the face of this earth. And all of us have a commitment to making it secure, not only for our children, their children, the more beautiful ones waiting to be born. We gave the world its first humanity. We might give the world its next humanity. The fortunate position we are in is that we can regain everything that belongs to us without invading other people's country, without violating other people's women, without taking anything that belonged to other people. And we can stand for our own sovereignty without impinging on the sovereignty of other people. The world will be better when we are in power. The world needs our imagination. The world needs our energy. The world needs both our laughter and the wrath of our thunder, breaking the chains of injustice. Thank you.
Dr. John Henry Clark. Dr. John Henry Clark.
You are listening to Muta Baruka.
Well, it's about time them recognize Jamaican as an official language, known as patois, but patois is English that's broken, but it's not broken, it's a language that's universally spoken. Jamaican, that's the way you talk, me brother. Jamaican, that's the way you talk, sister. Jamaican, that's the way you talk, me brother. Jamaican, talk how you talk, sister. Not so long ago down in Africa, we were talking African to one another. Some wicked man come cross we border, say we are the slave and say him are the owner. Put we on a big ship together, separate the mother, father, sister and a brother. Put a man from Ghana with a man from Nigeria. Wanna talk Ashanti, wanna talk Yoruba. Try to mix we up so we don't understand them. Forget the African, invent communication. We take them English, put in we African. A touch of Arawak Indian and we get Jamaican. That's how we talk, me brother. Jamaican. That's where we talk, sister. Jamaican. Talk how you talk, me brother. Jamaican. Yeah, man. Everywhere me go, people want learn Jamaican. Them love the sound, them love the vibration, them love the grammar, the word combination. Spoken in Jamaica by the whole of the nation. Some people tell you say you have to talk the English. Them think Jamaican is a lower language. We talk the English when we want, but to listen to this. Out of the English and Jamaican we sound the sweetest. Look at that. Kude, what for? Fiwa, go away. Where? Look here. Kuya. Here. Yes sir, there. Yes sir. Where are you going? How where you go? Come over here. Come here now. I see. Oh, whoa. What are you eating? Where you am? That's how I am. I saw me tan. Leave me alone. Let me know. Go on. Galang. Fenke, laba, so, bogo, yaga, pian, chaka, re, wara. Can't forget the influence of Rasta. Give them the Ital and the Irie and the Ishens higher. You have your language, you can chat how you are. Nobody can tell you say you can't. Jamaican, that's the way you talk, me brother. Jamaican, that's the way you talk, sister. Jamaican, talk how you talk, me brother. Jamaican, talk how you talk, sister. Jamaican, that's the way you talk, me brother. Jamaican, that's the way you talk, sister. Jamaican, talk how you talk, me brother. Jamaican. Talk how you talk, sister. Whether you call it Jamaican or you call it patois, or the language of the people them from Jamaica. It based upon the English, but that no matter. Most languages based upon another. English, it isn't all English, kinda new. Come from other languages like languages do. If you think English is English, true and true, Maccabee has got news for you. Cause words like dingy and bungalow are Bengali. Admiral is Arabic, also safari. Noodle and poodle and swindle and strudel and wrangle and snuggle come from Germany. Hallelujah, Jubilee are from the Hebrew. Bandana is from Hindi, also shampoo. Manager, propaganda, umbrella, influenza. Ghetto studio are Italian too. Kidnap and drip, they are Danish. Sauna is Finnish, brick is Flemish. Biscuit and picnic and trophy and dentist and chauffeur all come from the French language. December, November, October, September comes from the Latin. So does August, splinter and plug and drug. They are Dutch, you know. See the English it mix up. Jamaican, that's the way we talk, me brother. Jamaican, that's the way you talk, sister. Jamaican, talk how you talk, me brother. Jamaican.
We are listening to the whole amends. You know here, continent, the end, the end. Miss Lou, we love you for true. We love how you chat. Some no love that, Miss Lou, you heavy for true. Me say we love where you say, when you say, where you say, Miss Lou. Our ears now we see where you do for poetry. Here in Jamaica, using our patois. Me know
hero too. We watch the children a dance and a sing, and you teach them how to play ring ding, Miss Lou. Chat. Some no love that, Miss Lou. Miss Lou, Miss Lou, you heavy for true. Me say we love where you say, when you say, where you say, Miss Lou. Miss Lou, you make them know that is from the base things that Jamaica grow. Them used to say we must speak and twang, but you make we proud say we are African. Now we see them a teach in school that Jamaica patois is not for fool. When you chat, it sounds so sweet, and all of Jamaica just a skin them teeth, Miss Lou. How you chat, a patois that, Miss Lou, you heavy for true. Me say we love where you say, when you say, where you say, Miss Lou. Me know Nanny a hero for true, but me think you a hero too. We watch the children a dance and a sing, and you teach them how to play ring ding, Miss Lou, we love you for true. We love how you chat. Some no love that, Miss Lou. Miss Lou, you heavy for true. Me say we love where you say, when you say, where you say, Miss Lou. Miss Lou, we love you for true. We love how you chat. Some no love that, Miss Lou. Miss Lou, we love you for true. We love where you say, when you say, where you say, Miss Lou. Miss Lou, we love you for true. We love where you say, when you say, where you say, Miss Lou.
Continent with Muta Baruka. We are listening to our laments. You know here, continent, the end, the end.
As Barack Obama becomes the first sitting U.S. president to visit Laos, we replay a report that looks at the legacy of the U.S. bombing in Laos. We bring you an interview with the man that first exposed the massive secret bombing of Laos.
From the Deputy Chief of Mission to Laos, testifying to the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee, this is an exact quote, when he was asked why they quadrupled the bombing of northern Laos, he said, quote, well, we had all those planes sitting around and couldn't just let them sit there with nothing to do, unquote.
For the people of Laos, obviously, this war was no secret. Over the course of roughly a decade, the United States dropped more bombs on Laos than Germany and Japan during World War II.
President Obama visited the COPE Center that works with victims of explosives left from the Vietnam War era, providing them with prosthetic limbs, and takes part in unexploded ordnance clearing efforts.
270 million cluster bomblets were dropped on this country. For the people of Laos, the war did not end when the bombs stopped falling. 80 million cluster munitions did not explode.
Despite Obama's visit, the United States remains one of the handful of countries that continues to manufacture and sell cluster bombs to its allies such as Saudi Arabia, which is currently using them in the conflict in Yemen. This report is from 2008.
A cluster munition is a canister which is fired from an aircraft or an artillery position, which contains many small submunitions, these small munitions which then explode. And some of these canisters can contain as many as 650 of these small submunitions.
78 million unexploded cluster bombs are scattered across Laos to this day, active reminders of the Vietnam War. From 1964 to 1973, the U.S. illegally bombed the country as part of a secret war to disrupt Viet Cong supply routes into Vietnam.
In Laos, they have been everywhere at the time of the war in the 1960s and 70s. In villages, the place was basically uninhabitable because of the degree of weapons contamination and mainly cluster munition contamination.
The Lao National Unexploded Ordnance Program, or UXO, says Laos has the distinction of being, per capita, the most heavily bombed nation in the world.
เขาไปซับน้าแล้วหอบเข้าไปนี่นะแต่บนบูฮูแล้วมันมีระเบิดนะเอาไปทอดคันน้านนะทำแล้วแตะบูฮูว่ามันจะบูฮูว่าคุณพี่บอกแล้วเพื่อบูฮูแล้วอยู่พื้นดินนี่ดินนะครับพึบลงแห้งใช่ไหม
เอาจากคุกนะมันถูกเตะนะ
People know about the dangers about this UXO, about this cluster munitions on the ground, but it's either they leave it on the ground and they will not be able to farm, or they take the risk just to be able to do some farming and plant rice.
Our belief is that it will be necessary and it's possible to prohibit perhaps more than 95% of existing cluster munitions, which means billions of submunitions that are sitting in stocks around the world.
We also interviewed the man that brought the U.S. bombing of Laos to world attention in 1969, Fred Bramfman. He passed away in 2014. This is part of our 2013 interview with Fred.
When I interviewed over 1,000 refugees from northern Laos who had had their homes and villages destroyed, tens of thousands of people murdered by U.S. bombing, the one thing I couldn't figure out was why the bombing had so increased after November 1968, when the U.S. had halted bombing over North Vietnam. All the peasants were telling me that the bombing had suddenly become 4 or 5 times greater, and I knew there was no military reason for it. It was only a few months later that I read, and this is a very important quote, from the Deputy Chief of Mission to Laos, testifying to the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee. This is an exact quote. When he was asked why they quadrupled the bombing of northern Laos, he said, quote, "Well, we had all those planes sitting around and couldn't just let them sit there with nothing to do," unquote. Now, the situation we have today is very similar. The Bush and Obama administrations have created the first U.S. force of American assassins in our history. They've also created automated machines of war called drones. They have to come up with new missions. For example, President Obama stated as recently as last month that the drone strikes are only aimed at people whose names we know, who are plotting to kill us back in America, and who we can't get any other way. This was an absolute falsehood. The evidence is overwhelming that most of the strikes, drone strikes in Pakistan, in Yemen, in Somalia, are what they call signature strikes. These are strikes against people whose names they don't know. They have no idea what their names are. They're drone striking them on the basis of there's a crowd of people who they decide might be hiding a militant. Now you might ask yourself, why did they go from striking named people to striking unnamed people? Why did they go there? They've only been able to name 77 senior Al-Qaeda leaders and Taliban leaders by name, and they've killed 3,000 to 5,000 other people. Well, the reason is obvious. There are all these drones sitting around out there. They don't know the names of that many quote senior Al-Qaeda leaders. They ran out of targets, so they then decided to start killing nameless people, which both General McChrystal and the former Director of National Intelligence now tell us is infuriating the Muslim world.
From Baltimore, this is Jessel Noor.
All right. Yes, EL.
Yeah.
You the man say, him so dark and pretty. You know him could have been something so ugly. So even at them days, they have some man who have some consciousness about dark and pretty. You know what I mean? So you know, man.
Give thanks.
Give thanks, man.
How was there?
There, man.
Give thanks. Yeah, well, it's gone 12, you know, according to the clock and thing they just say when it's gone 12 is another day, but we still want to bless up. You still want to bless up Mama Lou, you know?
Yeah, man, you have to bless her up, man.
Yes, I. And you know, observe something, you know.
Mama Lou got a vibe with rain. Let us say when somebody pass and during the time them put into rest or whatever, when rain fall, the person crying. I don't know if you ever hear about that.
If we notice it?
I don't know if they ever hear about that. Like when I want pass.
Yeah.
And during funeral service or whatever, when the rain fall, them say the one is crying.
Oh them all me hear that.
You remember during the time it was the gathering was going on from Slow downtown.
Yeah.
Same time I was at the coordinator. I remember I was passing on information to Sister Ellie. Okay. And rain poured downtown like nothing, man. And we noticed today, we was in certain area in Jamaica.
In my area, we can tell you, in my area.
In the area I was, that's why I tell in the eye.
Yeah.
In the area, rain like wow.
Rain like wow, man, may I tell you?
Yeah, okay, that's where I go. You know, observation I make, there's always talk about indigenous people must always take the lead.
Yeah.
And I notice in Australia, we see an indigenous face in Parliament at this point in time.
Yeah.
I think it's a lady too.
Yeah.
And, even though the Westminster style politics is what it is, rank and dirty and etc. When we don't see nothing wrong with the right face being in the right place, even though the place, as I just said, the Westminster politics is what it is.
Yeah.
It's good when a one can dabble in politics and be the right face and make the dirty Westminster style political system drag them in the mire,
Yeah.
that it drag most people. And they being the right face make a difference for their people and for all people,
Yeah.
And we really welcome that kind of move there and seeing that indigenous, original, Australia, original face.
Aboriginal.
Yes, in that place, we really welcome that. We notice what we want jump from there now and jump in a yard just so with the killing that we see going on in certain areas with black. It's quite a thing, I just recently I make a sound and say if when the thing was going on in Tivoli, right? It's Tivoli. It happened when they said they were looking for the brothers and the whole little people they kill off. Dollars, yeah. I said, and I want to say it again. If the whole of Jamaica had stepped out when that was happening, the rest of Jamaica had stepped out and say, what we not do to the people, man? You would have make a big difference in Jamaica. Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
And that scene when we see a go on now between them neighborhood and now and killing a go on a reach the other coronation market. Terrible, man. And me want to know a place. Them thing that I want to know how them things there. How them things there go on in the present just like that.
And some of them in a middle day too.
Eh?
Some of them is in a middle day too.
Idea.
Like the man them now hide again.
No. Oh man, them thing that to cut right now, man. And Jamaica police, Jamaica police got a reputation in the Caribbean, you know. Yeah, Jamaica police not jester.
Yeah.
The armed forces in general, police and soldier, not jester. So something look like it's. Sometimes I wonder if these killing what take place in this kind of thing here is allowed to be. Is allowed. The choice of words may I use.
Yeah.
Is allowed, like it's some kind of conspire blind. Let it go and kill. Make them go and kill one another, man.
Yeah, make them kill one another.
Man, make them kill one another.
It's a big problem.
Black lives no matter.
It's a big problem.
It's terrible, man. It's terrible, man.
But then now the youth them look like them really, as I think crossways, they like them cross trade, man. For make them think that, whatsoever cause it, for make them think they reach a level there where you start killing all the bridging them where you used to, where you know it.
Reach them levels,
terrible.
Man. No, man, them things they put stamp out, man.
Yeah, man.
Them things they put stamp out. And me always say, the way the struggle reach right now in the black world, we need some underground armed struggle to deal with other matters and matters like this. Yeah. We need some serious
maybe you
black
can start
people
it.
who
Maybe
know
you can start
these
it, man.
things there.
Maybe you can start it.
And just take over the Babylon system police force and soldier them now do.
Maybe you can start it, man.
We have to, man.
Well, when they are place this weekend in a Houston, man.
Yes.
And may I tell you, the guard them around me, I wonder if I don't know how me become so important that the man them have them own force.
Yes.
And you have about 3 man for my right, 3 man. The last time I see that happen with I was in Gambia, man.
Yes.
But 3 man for my right, 3 man for my left, 1 man at the back and 1 man at the front, and nobody couldn't even put them on near me.
Security tight.
Oh gosh, man, me I tell you something, look on that, me I say, but look at this. Me come clear at Texas.
Yes.
Houston, come have guard me to the point where no, I mean, I can't even explain it. Me
You understand, man. You understand.
Me can't even explain it to
you understand. African style.
Yeah, man, and them kind of style there. That me I show you. It's when the man them stand up straight and salute. And
yes.
Me na the middle, me and look on all of this. And me, if me walk, them walk. If them stop, me stop. Them stop.
Yes.
If me turn around, all of them turn. And them turn around in coordination too, you know.
Yes, I.
That's some serious youth, man, me I tell you.
And these youth and these 3 people they are talking about.
Yes.
Them not part of no Babylon, nothing, ain't it?
No, some black youth with them have, what them call them, I don't remember them name, you know. It's some, oh gosh, me have them name in my computer, yeah, believe you me,
yes.
but and them picture and everything.
Militant.
But militant. Nobody couldn't come near me, man. When me dey on the stage, on the two side of the stage, man, them there. Me go upstairs, go sit down for watch a next show. The man, them have 1 man on each door leading up to which part me there. You know them there? Me I tell you, it's something else.
There. Talking about that, you know, this time for everything that is happening in the politic world right now, I commend the eye for recognizing talent. We're talking right now about xylophone.
The little daughter. Oh, gosh, man. May I tell you, man.
Sweet. Yeah, she Godfather. We give thanks to the eye recognizing talent and pressing towards it. As she come a rebel, don't give the nod. Rebel salute.
Yeah. 4-year-old woman. I'm Clay Loney.
And I'm Shay Rozzi. Fox 23 was the first station to tell you about what happened in Muskogee and show you the body cam video.
Turn around and face that way now, or I'll spray you.
Now Fox 23 has gone through the rest of the video, and it includes officers trying to get their story straight and make sure they all agree on what happened and whether they did the right thing. Only on Fox 23, Eddie Randall is live after discussing the video with city councilors.
Well,
Well, guys, city councilors are the only ones speaking right now because of an internal investigation that is underway. But one councilor did tell me that the video appears as though officers are trying to create their own version of what happened. This is not the first time we have showed you this video of police kicking in a door to make contact with a suspect. In the process of getting him out of the house, they used a taser on him. Then police pepper sprayed his 84-year-old mother in the face because she wouldn't turn around.
The whole situation is troubling, and at this point, our hopes are on the internal investigation.
City Councilor Derek Reed says he has seen the videos in depth and believes there are some things that need to be addressed.
With the footage we've seen, we just hope that things are handled in the manner that they should be.
What's raised concern is some of the officers appear confused on what to do.
Are you on booted?
It's clear to me that they were unaware of what several procedures were that should have taken place.
After they have gotten everyone out of the house, you can hear a group of officers going over the events that just took place and admitting things should have been handled differently.
She should have booted the door on hot pursuit.
That's
what
my
should have
concern.
happened.
Right.
And then you hear another officer make this comment.
I think we can spin it.
It was hard to hear, but the officer says we can spin it.
Gives the impression to the public that they want to create a version of what happened instead of just reporting what happened.
The chief says any comment made before the internal investigation is complete would be improper. Now, I did ask counselors about the department and the city standing behind being transparent. I'm putting that story together, all new for Fox 23 News at 10. Live in Muskogee, covering news that matters. I'm Eddie Randall, Fox 23 News.
Yes, yeah.
Blessed
man.
Blessed. Now, yesterday, Wednesday the 7th, about 6:30 in the morning, over 50 Jamaicans were put on a chartered plane
deported
and sent to Jamaica.
Right.
Now, of these over 50 Jamaicans, it is only due to social media, because this was a sneak operation. We were only alerted of this the day before, which is a Tuesday, that over 50 Jamaicans, most of them have been here most of their life, being deported to Jamaica. One who is 30 years old, been here from he was 4. There's also a grandfather, and so on. People who, most of them men who have married, have children, and then they are telling the people that if they want to fight the cases, they must fight it from Jamaica, and they must maintain their role as fathers, etc., of their children and grandchildren by telephone and by Skype. What a piece of
that sound like them Father Trump.
Yes.
It look like it's a Trump thing. It's like a virus that spread now. Because I hear them go build wall in England too.
Yes.
You hear about the wall
thing? Listen, just like how Trump want to build a wall around
Mexico,
Jamaica because of Bolt and others, them success. And in other ways too. It was both walls all around.
Yeah.
And you notice that Trump has said, no different from Hillary Clinton, that he is going to spend money to expand the U.S. military.
The military, yeah, which they must spend more money than everybody else in the world already put together.
Already. I'm going to spend more. Which goes to show, as you and I know, is, as Malcolm X said, there is no difference between a Democrat and a Republican. They all have the same racist agenda because they are all racist.
You did not listen to the program? Yeah, you did not listen to the program a while ago?
No, unfortunately. But
unfortunately, you carry the program gone over on the other side where we don't deal with another day. And Miss Lou, we did not celebrate.
Yes.
We did not celebrate Miss Lou.
I know about that. That was her
birthday yesterday. Today. I mean, yesterday.
Yes, it was her. It's our 97th birthday,
Yeah. Born on North Street.
Well, one thing I must say about Miss Lou is that a lot of people don't know this. her mother was a dressmaker, what them call seamstress. But for most of her life as a young woman, young girl, she grew up in Spanish Town near to the courthouse there in Spanish Town by the Spanish Town Square. That's where she grew up. Yes, man, because I have some older brethren in Spanish Town who grew up with her, you know, they told me that. And I've heard her in the past saying that. And you have some years ago, and I think you will do it, you will play...
No, we do that already. You say that,
DJ.
That's why I asked you. No, that's why I asked you if you did listen to the program, because all of them things...
Okay, no.
We play Dirty Tough and Color Bar. Yeah.
Yeah, bigger up, man.
But the thing with the deported them is that we want to find out what part the government of Jamaica playing at that, because they must know that going to happen.
Precisely.
We want to find out what part the government play in that deportation thing.
Yes. Well, I can tell you one part that definitely play. No plane lands in a country like that, specially chartered, and the government of the country where the plane is coming to doesn't know anything about it.
Yeah, and them could have get all money to England could have give them all money to do it.
Yeah, you just don't turn up with your plane.
Yeah, and just send people.
So that was definitely organized and accepted. So Andrew Honis has to explain why he allowed this injustice against people from Jamaica. One solitary good thing that happened is that the lawyers for about 7 of the deportees, I mean the people that deported, were able to stop their deportations. Yes, they took some legal action already, but they said no.
You don't know Jamaica. You don't know Jamaica. All you know is England. All the things that you learn, bad and good, at England you learn it. And then a man just take and put up on a plane and say, so when one come to predator, them want them people to come to predator and we don't have so now.
But listen, the people have no connections, nothing, no support system in Jamaica.
Nothing.
How is them going to survive?
Yeah, but
because you're going to survive by any means necessary, as you know.
Of course, you just land a man at the airport. I mean, it's terrible. So we want to find out how the government, what part the government playing in that, and we're going to find out, you know. We're going to find out.
No, Muta, we have to find out, because I am going to write a letter to Andrew Honis to ask him what was the role of the Jamaican government.
But them not going to answer.
No, it does not matter. The thing is that we have it on record. It's just like a few years ago, I wrote to Portia Simpson about Boat Islands and the Chinese and thing, and she has never answered. But it is on file that she refused to answer.
Yeah, well, we are going to find out tomorrow. We're not going to write to nobody.
Yes, I agree with you.
Yeah,
but listen, you say that is them doing what you're saying that they're doing what Trump is doing.
Yeah.
They've been doing it before.
No, not what Trump is doing. No, Trump not start doing it yet. They might do what Trump has suggests.
No. What I'm saying, they've been doing what some Trump
Obama.
In the States.
Yeah, that means Obama deport thousands of people already, even back to Jamaica.
Yes. No, but what I'm saying, even before Obama, Barry Salmon have a niece, Sharon Garden in New York, who years ago alerted me to the fact that Jamaicans were being deported from the States by stealth, because what they found out, you see, if them commit a misdemeanor like a traffic violation, once them leave the States and come Jamaica, and want to go back, them allow you to leave, you know. Them stop you from coming back in. It is Sharon Garden, Barry's niece, his sister, daughter, told me this years ago she used to go to Alpha. You know what I mean?
But I don't know why. I don't know why people are say Trump suggest a terrible thing when them know them do it for a long time. What Trump has said is what Trump has said is where them do all the while, you know. It's just what he must say.
That is why I bring in the example. That is why I bring in the example of what Sharon Garden told me years ago. This was what was happening. So people just have a minor thing, you know, a traffic violation, you know, a minor thing.
Simple and that.
You know, throwing rubbish.
Yeah.
Yes. then allow you to leave. But I remember in the 60s in Jamaica, you know, I got to Astor Theatre in Spanish Town on the Brunswick Avenue. It's now a church. And I saw a brethren there and sell cigarettes in Astor Theatre. And some people say, you know, say him was in England, but then throw him out.
Yeah.
But at the time, them called throw out. It's deport. It's later on in life I realized what they mean by the throw out. It's deport. So it's long time them thing they are going.
Yeah.
And this was in the 1960s. And guess what happened? This was after. So I said to the brethren, because I had come to England in the early 70s to study, as you know, civil engineering. So I said to him in the cinema, me say, wait, so you did the England, man? Me say, Muta, the brethren give me a look. You say, look could kill? No, you laugh. You laugh seriously, my brother. Me say, when I said, because me I said, through him did the England, and then I check it now here, you know. But the memory of how him was thrown out, the man give me a look. If look could have shoot.
You have buried him, would have buried a long time.
Man, would have dead right there and then in Astor Theatre Spanish Town, the man, on the Brunswick Avenue. Yes, and then a next brethren who we know now, when me I go technical then, you know, I'm a key brethren from outer east, me not all them names, seen from in a Franklin Town. Him did there England as a youth, but them saying he used to get trouble. And him did get deported too. But them never call it deported Jamaica, boy, in the England, you know, and them free him out. And I know him tell me at first, you know, I have one of the next brethren tell me I one day me and him attack and him fling out.
Well, a whole heap of that go start going. And as me I said before, them Trump is saying exactly what white America
what they have been doing.
But it's just that now because him not so polished like them. Him a talk out them mind and talk out them brains and talk out them heart. Him is the mouthpiece of America.
True. And that is why I always say Trump is the wolf. You know where you stand. But Hillary and the others, them is the fox. I murder you, I stab you in the back, and I go on like them now do nothing. And the English, as Marcus Garvey Jr. told us from the 1960s, they are the most hypocritical of all people from planet Earth, man. Them special. That is why so much people in England go mad, you know. Because it's that United States where the racists come out with it up front and thing, you know. The English laugh and go on like everything nice and murder you behind your back. Yeah, man. So it's a mental form of terrorist activity. With them conduct psychologically, man. Them dangerous, man. Because you see when a guy or a girl come out on you up front, you know where you stand. You're under no illusion. But you see when I want to skin and I kin them teeth and make you feel say everything nice and tell you say everything nice and go on like and I murder you behind. The English are the most. Marcus Garvey Jr., the son of the prophet Marcus Garvey, told me and others in the 1960s that of all the people on planet Earth, the English are the most hypocritical, most dangerous, man. Don't run with them. You have to depend on your guard. Don't afraid of them, you know. But don't give them no leeway. Don't give them no leeway. And Muta, I trust you as an African, like myself, with our consciousness, to deal with Andrew Hornis and also ask what the PNP opposition have to say about the same thing too. We're
going to find out something tomorrow about these things. We're going to find out something.
And there was a demonstration at the Jamaican
man, we hear about it. Man. Everything I go on, we hear about it. We hear about it. And we're going to find out. We're going to go to the top of it.
Yeah, man, and I will keep you posted.
Yeah, man. Give thanks, brethren. Give thanks.
Give thanks. I will. Bless.
This is the cutting edge on RFM. And some serious issues where we have got two things. One, that deportation thing, and the next one, that little youth where we hear say them now want to come back out of school. So we want to find out about these things urgently. So Saturday is the beginning of the new year in Ethiopia. The 11th of September, they call it Maskaram. the 11th of September, the new year in Ethiopia. And it's also Peter Tosh's birthday.
This book is about massacres of black French soldiers. So these were soldiers who had been drafted by the French army in Africa, mostly sub-Saharan Africa, Senegal, Mali, and countries in that region. And they were brought to France in 1939 and 1940, and they fought against the German army. When the German army captured these soldiers and made them prisoner, many officers ordered that they be executed and massacred right upon capture, and I estimate that around 3,000 of them were killed right after capture. Many more were killed on the way to POW camps. So they were treated in a quite abhorrent way, and the motivation for this was racism. And what is important in this context is that the German campaign in France is so often portrayed as a campaign where there's not yet that massive racism that played out on the Eastern Front toward the Russians, toward Jews, toward Poles already earlier on. And my book wanted to show that the Nazi regime was indoctrinating the German people and the German army already during the French campaign in a strong racist sense, and that this led to these massacres of black soldiers. Before the massacres happened, there was a massive press campaign in the German media, and this campaign was ordered by Hitler personally because he felt that after the first successes in that campaign, the British were beaten and were leaving Europe through Dunkirk, Hitler felt that the German soldiers did not hate the French enough. So how do you get the German soldier to hate the French more? He thought, and he agreed with Goebbels, with his propaganda minister on this, make a lot of noise about the African soldiers in the French army, depict them as man-eating savages, as mutilating savages. And Nazi propaganda worked very centrally at this time. So Goebbels was on the phone, off the phone with Hitler, immediately gave the orders, and the next day articles kept appearing about savage African soldiers who were cutting to pieces German prisoners in France. There were basically German propaganda teams or camera teams who went into the camps and who had instructions, and they found those instructions in the archives. Go and look for animalistic scenes. So film soldiers or prisoners while they were doing things that animals do. And so these camera teams zoomed in, for example, on soldiers who were eating raw meat because they were starving in these camps. At first, in the beginning, the supply situation was terrible. So these camera teams filmed prisoners, black prisoners, and also sometimes North African prisoners tearing apart raw cows or raw sheep and eating the meat. Other propaganda teams, and they did this for many months afterwards, also when some of these prisoners were first brought to Germany, before everybody got Hitler's order that they were actually supposed to be kept in France. There were propaganda teams who went into the POW camps in Germany and filmed dances of these soldiers, and often they told them, dance like we are used to. And many of these African soldiers came from very different regions in Africa. Well, we're supposed to dance like we do. Well, we are not we are from very different areas here. We dance differently. So they started usually dancing under pressure. And these camera teams filmed this. And if we watch them today, we might think, oh well, just a bunch of black men in French uniforms dancing. But the way they were presented to the German audiences at the time is so basically to underscore that these soldiers from Africa are primitive, that they are dancing primitive dances and behaving in ways that are more befitting of an animal than a human. And this went so far that the official Nazi newspaper said sort of as a rhetorical question, do you think that these soldiers ought to be spared and be taken into a POW camp? So the implication was these people are free for murder. And the German soldiers read these articles, they heard news like that on the radio. And when they attacked in a second wave in early June 1940, they began to read everything in the battle situation according to Nazi propaganda. So whenever they found one of their comrades with severe cutting wounds, for example, they immediately thought, oh, this person must have been a prisoner of a black unit and they must have cut that person to pieces. And then officers, when they captured black soldiers, said, now we are going to avenge these outrages, and very often officers ordered that the black soldiers be separated from the white soldiers and also from the North Africans, who were usually put together with the white soldiers, and then the black soldiers were led away. Very often it was execution at the edge of a forest, at the end of a field. Usually without witnesses, because in those regions of France where this happened, many of the civilians had left. They had fled before the German army arrived. So there were often few direct witnesses, except for the soldiers in the German army, the officers. And in many cases they were just lined up at the edge of a field and executed with machine guns or machine pistols. The white French soldiers and officers later on saw this. They heard it, and then they often saw the corpses when they were driven away to a POW camp. Most of the African soldiers were illiterate. A few of them left written sources. There are a few in the archives, but they're mostly the French educated lower rank officers, and they have a particular perspective. The most detailed documents were the accounts of white French officers, and these were accounts that they wrote shortly after the campaign, a couple of months or a year or two after the campaign. And they wrote them with a very different purpose. They wrote them to highlight certain soldiers who should get military medals. And they also wrote them because the French government and army wanted to understand what had gone wrong in 1940. Why did we lose this campaign so disastrously? So it wasn't about human rights or about documenting massacres, but in the context of trying to explain the defeat, these officers very often gave a lot of detail on what had actually happened in combat and right after these people were taken prisoner. So those are the most important sources. There are few German sources where soldiers in their diaries admit that they did kill Africans. Very few of them. But what you can see in the German sources, mostly these stereotypes about man-eating African soldiers that mirror almost one-to-one the Nazi propaganda in the preceding days and weeks. One of the things that surprised me was that the massacres were by no means universal. There were German officers who were exposed to the same Nazi propaganda as those who ordered massacres, but who decided this is not right. This is against the Geneva Convention. This is illegal, even though the official Nazi newspaper essentially legitimizes this killing of prisoners. That's the wrong thing to do. And many officers decided not to do it. There were some German soldiers who stepped out and said, stop this, we can't do this. There were quite a few who did block such an execution. And what surprised me was that in some cases I have the writings of these officers who did not participate in massacres. Sometimes they were just as Nazified as those officers who ordered massacres, but they somehow had this remainder of decency and legalistic thinking where they thought, no, this is not the right thing to do, I can't do this, so let's not massacre these people. So the French feel bad about not having recognized this whole contribution of African soldiers to the Second World War. And there are reasons why they didn't recognize this, because these soldiers became very unruly in 1944-45, and they led some of the revolts, and then some of them went into independence movements. So it's a very painful issue in France. But many French people feel that these people have not received enough attention. So in France, the book had huge visibility because of this bad conscience in some sense. And in Germany to some extent too, because of the whole debate about the German army and its involvement in racial crimes. I did really want to bring to attention that there were black soldiers from West Africa in the French army, that they were massacred, so there are these victims that were largely forgotten after the Second World War. And I also want readers to understand the incredible complexity that even in a totalitarian state, people act in very different ways, not always predictable, not always logical, and to understand this complexity, which I think is crucial in helping us understand or undermine prejudice in general. It's a very complicated and differentiated picture.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
Yeah, wow, good evening, Wagwan.
Cutting edge.
Cutting edge. Yeah, talk about tomorrow's program, stepping razor. Anyways, hey, Wagwan with you, man, how's everything?
Yeah, you listen to the program?
Yeah, man, I listen to
that man. No, not Donald Trump we talk about, Miss Lou.
I never catch that probably because I don't have try to catch a program that way now. Maybe only listen to my YouTube.
It's a one little talk, we just talk and Donald Trump come up, but the most of the main part of the program, you know who name Miss Lou?
No, she probably way before my time.
She way before most people time. Then the whole thing way before your time. Then all you talk about Egypt all the while. Then way before your time and you know about it.
Okay, well,
every time you call, you talk about. Wait there, hold on there. Every time you call, you talk about Egypt and history. That no way before your time.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean I didn't study it in college.
Yeah, but me asked you know about Miss Lou, and you say that was before your time.
Well, yeah, but I never heard about Miss Lou. It's not everything that you...
No, me never say everything. No, I just asked if you hear about Miss Lou, you know, you said before your time. And I say, not because it's before your time, you couldn't know about her. Miss Lou...
That is true.
All right, Miss Lou, if you go up on the internet and Google Miss Lou, just put Miss Lou in there. Jamaican, or you put in Louise Bennett.
Louise Bennett, I know. I know that name, yeah.
You know Miss Louise Bennett?
I know Louise Bennett, yeah, but I never heard about Miss Lou.
All right,
I heard about the name when I was a kid in Jamaica.
Oh, then if you come from Jamaica, you never hear about Miss Lou Bridget, about Louise Bennett.
I never hear by...
All right. What you know about Miss Louise Bennett?
It's a long time. I only heard about her back in Jamaica when I was a kid.
Yeah, but when you hear about her, what the name associated with? When you hear the name, what associated with?
It's been a long time, Muta. I have not even heard that name again until just now.
Okay, all right. Me not appreciate. All right, so what you say? Where you go on?
Well, I mean, when I talk about I mean, I don't really want to go too much about the topic, but I just want to talk about some things when we want to drop out about again, I mean, you know me, I'm gonna, you know what, let me just say it this way. I think that we need to know exactly, us black people in a whole, because here in America, in the Caribbean, I have know that the Bible spell as cast a spell on us, and these government officials are using that Bible to control us. As long as we believe this stupid book, we will not pay attention to what's going on in the world. We're going to excuse it as like, oh, well, the Bible says it's going to happen. Well, the thing about the Bible put all that stuff in the Bible. All those prediction and prophecy, they're the one who wrote it. The government of the world is following an agenda to use it against the people so that they can have an excuse to say, oh, Satan is doing it. Here's a question I want every black people to take a look at. Do you ever see any one of your government leaders in church on a Sunday or on a regular day? No. They only come there with a wedding or maybe a funeral. They don't give a damn about church. And
Hold on.
Let
me take up for my politician them in Jamaica. Let me take up for my politician. I don't know about your one them in America.
Them no got church in America.
You see my politician. Wait. You see my politician in Jamaica. A whole heap of them go to church on Sunday and Saturday.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Well, the ones in America, they don't even believe in that garbage because they know it's garbage. They don't want to rule the damn thing. So they know they promote this
in
thing.
America.
Pope Leo X. There's a famous statement he makes at a Good Friday banquet. He says, "Oh, wonderful the fever of Christ is for us and our predecessors."
Yeah.
This is the statement of Pope Leo X. Now, I want to drop this knowledge here. The 666 formula, which everybody's been scared of all this time, right? That is the formula for carbon-12. 6 electrons, 6 protons, 6 neutrons. If 666 is in every human being and in every animal, it's nothing to be scared of. That is the formula for carbon-12. Now, the 7 seals, I know Capleton always talk about the 7 seals in his songs. The 7 seals is nothing but the 7 chakras in the human body. We have also, there's 7 holes in our head. The 2 nostrils, the 2 eyes, the 2 ears, and the 1 mouth. 7. Those 7 is corresponded to the 7 planets in the universe. The Sun and the Earth. Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn. And if there's one missing, then there's, just look at the 7 planets that you can see with your naked eyes from the Earth. There's no mystery about the 7 seals. What I'm trying to say to y'all, the Bible is just pure garbage. They take everything out of the universe and out of the human body and put it in the book and to scare you. And they keep on promoting this thing over and over every year. The 3 kings, we 3 kings of Orient. Well, Orient is the Orion belt, which actually was called Osiris belt back in the days. And those 3 stars, you can see them every night out there in the sky. The star that we see in the east is the dog star Sirius, which points to the sun. So the sun is Jesus Christ. So Jamaicans, unless we got time, we have to go wake up ourselves and we have to come and pay attention to what the government of the world is doing to us, the people. They don't want black people to rise at all. They are afraid of us. They don't want black people to rise. And so therefore, that's the reason why in America they don't want black men and black women to have children. They don't even want no more Jamaicans nor Haitian people to come to America. They turn them back around and send them back because they feel that. In fact, Henry Kissinger wrote a letter to Ronald Reagan back in the days saying that we should never allow no more blacks to come up here and blacks should never gather. It's called Rex 83, or another name for it. It's called the King Alfred Plan. Look that up.
Yeah, but from him say that till now, you know what black people go up to America since that?
Yeah, but the thing is they do not want them. They want to keep us divided, separated. They want that. See, there's a lot of racist men here in America, and some of them even actually go to Jamaica on vacation too. So y'all better be careful of that too. You know, you got to make sure you watch these white people when they come to Jamaica, because I believe that they're the ones who put guns in Jamaica, and because so much of us Jamaicans have so much pride and stuff like that, and we probably can be arrogant and ignorant sometimes.
Yeah.
They study us. They do a social engineering, study us, see our behavior. Because, I mean, I'm a psychologist, so therefore I study the behavior of people.
Let me ask you a question. How long now you come to Jamaica? When last you been to Jamaica?
My last time was 2013.
2013, about 3 years ago.
What
kind of work the man doing in America then?
Psychology. I said that a long time ago.
No.
I mean, not today, but
maybe your discipline in psychology. Maybe your discipline in psychology. What that means that you do for a living, like you collect.
That's what I do for a living.
That's what psychology you do for a living in America.
Yes, I'm a mental health
psychologist. Okay, in America. Yes.
In America.
In California, you there?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So therefore, what does we psychologists do? We study behaviors. We study patterns. So I'm telling you, somebody is doing something more advanced than what I'm doing, and they're doing it as a social engineer. They are watching our people. I'm telling you something. Jamaica, we are on the world map. We are. In fact, you know what? I'll tell you something too. Jamaica, you are on the FBI list. Because I looked at it a couple days ago. You guys are on the FBI list, just to let you know that.
Which guys? Which guys?
Jamaica. But I said Jamaica, you guys, all of you Jamaicans are on, Jamaica is on the FBI watch list, especially with this.
But that's not on news, Virgin. Jamaica, depend, I mean, FBI list. I mean, if you have something at Jamaica, you have your step on the FBI list. They might have everybody I watch you.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's news to you guys or not, but the thing is, because I love my country, I want to go ahead and drop the knowledge. Would I love if you love the country and there. Wait, what now?
I said, would I love if you love the country and it's here to some of that psychology, because we need some psychologists like you for there, so.
I mean, I'm trying more to talk with. I have a lot of my friends down here, some of them are nurses and doctors, and we talk about plans, what we're going to do to help Jamaica. Because, I mean, even though we don't live there, a lot of us leave when we are children. Doesn't mean we do not love our country. We're very much part of our country before we... Huh? Go ahead.
You don't have to die your country for no love. You love your country even though you're not there, of course.
Yeah, I mean, and then, you know, when I was there, I remember I was there 2012, and this guy said to me, so you guys still cheer for Jamaica even though you guys live in America? I was like, yeah, what do you think? Because we leave yard, it doesn't mean that we don't have yard, no yards? Yeah. No, my youth, we still respect our home, you know?
Yeah, man, of course.
So, I mean, so the thing is, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of, because you know what, I talked to a banker friend of mine down there about in August. And, you know, I was asking her, so I was Jamaica this morning, you know, and she was like telling me some things, and she said, you know, one of the things that I noticed in Jamaica, she said, you know, the mindset of the people, you know, automatically it was a bell went off in my head, because, you know what, as a psychologist, we deal with the mind and behavior and all that stuff and behavior pattern. The thing is, she is absolutely right. The mindset of the black people, and not usually say about black people, but you know, since I'm black myself, I want my people to rise. The mindset of our people must change. We have to come to a point where we must learn to respect another man's accomplishment. We must respect another man's point of view, especially if it's a healthy and a honest point of view. We must respect that. We have to learn to grow together. That's why I was like saying the best way I see that we Jamaicans in the future can change, if we put these philosophies in the mind of our children. No, don't get me wrong. Jamaica has been better. It's been a lot much better, you know. But still, there are few little things we can fine tune. If we learn to see, we have a future, have a plan in our mind. So, okay, we want to beautify Jamaica. We want the crimes to stop. I remember one time you was talking and you said, man, you tell me, say, a group of men play domino, and you know, one man vexed and he shoot up the whole domino table. That's foolishness. That don't make no sense. I say, you tell me, Sir Bridget, if you're upset with a man, you can't tell him, pull him onto the side and talk about it, or maybe you get somebody else and put him between all two as a mediator, and you talk about the issue. You tell me, if you shoot up the man for foolishness. Jamaica, yes. I do love you. You're my country, but man, you guys gotta grow the hell up, man. Okay. Those simple stupidness, man. Those things are like some idiotic things, man.
It's a virus I go around, Virgin. It's a virus I go around, man.
It's a mental health problem.
Yeah.
Because, okay, that's fine. You have pride. I get that. It's fine. You don't want to be disrespected. I get that also. Yeah. But, Brethren, sometime, man, you're my youth, you just have to walk and let certain things go. You have to be the bigger man.
All right.
The metropolitan Detroit area has been one of the most segregated regions in this country for many decades. It becomes more than clear as we go into different communities and different neighborhoods that we are not living with one another.
Racial segregation in housing does impact all aspects of our lives.
There's forces within society that are not comfortable with equality, despite the fact that the Declaration of Independence is the value that the world looks to America for.
Theoretically, I think the American dream is there, but I think if we have the willingness to look behind it, we will see that we're making achieving the American dream predictably more difficult for some people than others.
When you're starting out of the gate well after the race has started, then no matter how hard you try to catch up, you're at a deficit.
City of Detroit is one of the poorest places in America. Half of the children in the city of Detroit live below the poverty line. Now that is a profound level of inequality.
So when we talk about a segregated community, we're talking about a community that's segregated from opportunity.
We live in a country where your zip code is an identifying factor for the potential that you have to achieve and succeed.
The whole idea of saying that I can go after the American dream, that all you have to do is just give me the opportunity. Well, how do you get the opportunity?
In the late 1910s and the early 1920s, all of a sudden there started to come into Detroit a massive migration of African Americans. 1910, Detroit had a black population of 5,700 people. By 1920, it had a black population of 40,000. And as that population rose, all of a sudden, whites started to say, we don't want African Americans living next door to us. Now this is not a hard thing to explain. This is a rising tide of racism.
So it wasn't controversial. In fact, it wasn't even considered, for the most part, racist. To believe that whites were better than blacks was just a fact.
The Great Migration really helped grow the city when people came from the south to the north because of Ford's $5 a day wages, that everybody felt they could now be a part of that American dream.
Because they heard that Detroit was the promised land.
Housing then became a premium, and so people doubled up. People slept in cars.
Up until that time, when you wanted to get a mortgage, the bank would give you a short-term balloon loan, which would have to be paid off in 5 years and would probably be for only 50%. So when the FHA comes along and says, we'll loan people 95% of the money, guarantee it to the bank, and give you 30 years to pay it back, that is a tremendous resource. That changes everything.
What made home ownership available, but it was mainly for whites. And now that's sometimes shocking to Americans, like, no, that couldn't be the case. But remember, this is the 1930s and 40s. Jim Crow laws were rampant in America.
When the Federal Housing Administration was formed in 1934, their underwriting manual, which was their policy guide, indicated very clearly that neighborhoods are to stay homogeneous, meaning that white neighborhoods stayed white, black neighborhoods stayed black.
What the FHA did at the time was took a red marker and marked areas that they were willing to insure a mortgage loan.
And this became known as redlining. And the government helped create maps and helped banks create an appraisal system. It encouraged banks and other lenders to not loan monies where blacks were present or where blacks and whites were present together.
So here you have the real estate industry and the federal government working hand in hand to create the ghetto.
The real estate industry worked to write racially restrictive covenants that said that the real estate, the home, the land could only be sold to a white family if it was occupied by a white family.
The home that my aunt and uncle live in had in their deed is indicated that no Negro shall live in that house.
So the key to the segregation of Detroit, in the same way, is the key to the segregation of Chicago and New York and Philadelphia and Cleveland and Boston, is that the forces of the real estate marketplace took that rising tide of racism and they institutionalized it.
My brother and I, he's younger than me, Billy, and some of our friends, we looked for places to play. and I was 10 years old, he was been 8. And then one day we said, let's go over here 8 Mile Road, west of Wyoming, in this wooded area, and we come to this wall. We thought, man, what in the world is this? It had a very ominous, eerie feeling to it.
Here in Detroit, there was a developer that wanted to build a development for whites, and they wanted to get FHA loans. And the federal government said, you know what, there's a black community kind of close by. You don't get the good loans. And so the developer, in an effort to try to fix that, built a 6-foot tall wall, a foot deep, to separate the black community from the emerging white community. And then the federal government gave the loan.
So on one side of the wall, you continue to have these rural, underfunded, poorly maintained homes with people who didn't have much resources, while on the other side of the wall you have people who are moving into freshly painted homes with driveways and streets and new sewers. Folks who went in and signed on the dotted line and got those 30-year mortgages and looked at themselves with self-satisfaction and said, we just pulled ourselves up by the bootstraps, were in fact taking advantage of the FHA, providing them with resources and guaranteeing those funds. The whole faith and credit of the U.S. government was behind that. That makes a huge difference in a person's life, which side of that wall you end up on.
But it's a symbolic wall, and it's an insultingly low wall in a certain way. The belief that that's all it took to separate the races and to maintain that separation.
It is a very, very stark and ugly symbol of race discrimination, racial feelings, but also the dividing of resources within our communities.
This wall was effective because it fit the pattern of people's minds. It fit the structures of how they thought public policy was supposed to be done. And it fit so well that no one even gave it a second thought.
In 1941, again at the time that we're fighting Nazi Germany around its claim of white purity and white supremacy. We had our own kind of white purity and white supremacy. That wall still exists today. Eventually blacks were able to move on both sides of the wall, but the whites are not there. The whites were given another exit.
The wall no longer was separating people in the physical way, and then the wall had to move in a sense. And so people began to use the county line as the next barrier of separation.
When I think about 8 Mile, and while there's no wall per se, what that has meant for this region for decades around the divide between the city and the suburbs, and how that invisible wall feels so visible.
The wall exists in many other communities, and it exists not necessarily the way the Burwood Wall does, but in other communities the wall is a set of berms. There have been fences. There's often a railroad track. That's a common thing that we talk about. Which side of the tracks do you live on?
I have seen Detroit go demographically from a city that as a young man we probably had about 20% African American to currently it is probably closer to 85%. It's been hard to watch, only because you felt that the change to a great extent resulted from people fleeing. As more African Americans moved in, the rate at which whites moved out was just very, very stark. And for the businesses to have followed the residents means that opportunities that were there in the 1950s, 60s, maybe even 70s, they don't exist anymore. And what has been left behind is a population that isn't just overwhelmingly black, but it's also overwhelmingly poor.
If you're stuck in a place where there aren't city services, where healthcare isn't as good, where the educational system isn't as good, then you're locking people into a poverty that they might not otherwise be locked into.
Space and race are just as significant today as they were prior to the implementation of that physical wall. Why is there a different set of rules in different places? We don't have a transportation system, for example, here in Southeast Michigan that connects you to anything. You cannot get from downtown Detroit to the airport unless you have a car. And 40% of residents of the city of Detroit don't have a car. So how do you connect those people to opportunities?
The big question you got to ask yourself is, so you create all this system, that's ancient history. It's all illegal, it's all been eliminated. So why do we still have segregation? Once you link together race and the marketplace, it's really, really hard to pull it apart. That's why you get white flight. That's why you get the maintenance of segregation.
We can sort of see the sort of sins of the past and our mistakes of the past. It's harder to see what we're doing now. And what we're doing now is hiding in plain sight. Think about the recent housing crisis, the subprime loan that started really in the Black and Latino community and then spread throughout the country. Those communities have been starved for credit, starved for insurance, starved for new development for 30, 40 years. As more credit came into the world, it was directed to those communities, but it was at a higher price. And 50% of those loans should have been market rate loans. They should not have been subprime loans, which made them less affordable. And so the whole credit system itself has created a new wall.
One response to this segregation is to respond through the legal system, the same system that supported it for so long. We have found through our investigations and work, mortgage companies, banks in particular, have been denying credit in a uniform way in the modern era today to qualified applicants.
Every time this metaphorical wall is breached, the folks who have been taking advantage, the lion's share of those resources, find a new way to maintain that same system.
Detroit is really emptying out. Here's a city that was designed for 2 million people. Now, I think today we've got about 715,000 people. You've got 60-70% of the African-American middle class now lives outside of the cities. And many of those folk are not likely to ever come back. So we've got to be creative in how we repopulate cities.
Urban communities all around this country have to survive. I don't think that regions are nearly as strong and vibrant without urban centers.
So diversity represents really a challenge and opportunity. What to some people, the fact that half the children born in America are not white is scary. If it's not scary, what's the alternative story? Who are we and who will we be as a country? And so I think that part of the thing that's driving these issues is that we're actually talking about the American identity, the American soul.
I think we've got to grow our capacity to talk about race and race disparity, and we've got to be driven by our commitment to a bigger ideal.
The benefits of a diverse community, quite frankly, are just endless. When we get to know each other, when we have an opportunity to live in similar spaces, we have an opportunity to grow as individuals. We certainly have an opportunity to grow as a community.
So I feel like this challenge of trying to address these issues is critical so that we can really become one United States.
These changes don't come by ignoring them. They change because you break down the institutional barriers. You tear down those walls.
And until we're able to tear those walls down so that we can connect to one another, we can never really fully be our very best. And we have the opportunity, we have the ability. We just have to have the heart, the soul, and the commitment to make that change.
You know, say, we tell you about the Saturday, which is the Ethiopian New Year. We did that play some mentor a while ago because we have tried to keep in line with where we did that celebrate, which is Miss Lou Earth Day. But you know, so we can't gear the call of them. You know, people call for call with them. We not stop them from call. But we want to play a mental tune. We are hail up Haile Selassie, even from them time there. Yes.
I had the greatest experience with the Rastafari's and the government. I had the greatest experience with the Rastafari's and the government. The Emperor Haile Selassie came to Jamaica on a state visit. Hundreds of paid men from all about back up the airport without no doubt. Rather comb up your beard, wax up your head, let us march to the airport. Get a conch shell a jump, and we slow thing, let us welcome King of Kings. When the Emperor plane was landed, yes now they get so excited. Iron bars and rope was constructed to keep the island safeguarded. And yet without no doubt, they climb iron bars, even the rope. Good gosh, the Emperor ball, this really looks like he's a hoping war. Rather comb up your beard, wax up your hair, let us march to the airport. Get a conch shell a jump, and we slow till let us welcome King of Kings. It was to kidnap him. They said he's not the right king. Too much soldiers around, so they block up in Spanish town. Trucks and bus and cars like sun to greet the king of the Afrikan. Emperor said, God, just take me away. Don't stop till they reach down Montego Bay. Rather comb up your beard, wax up your hair, let us march to the airport. Get a conch shell a jump, and we slow till let us welcome King of Kings. Rather comb up your beard.
Yeah, you the man that take this thing up frivolous. You the man that frivolous with it though. You comb up your beard and wax up your head and all them way there. You know them way, it's like a thing. It's a thing, you understand? That is exactly how from 1966 until now, even when we just start sight Rasta, black people don't know, I never did know, say, if you don't comb your ear as a black person, your ear look like a tree. Yeah, that's like, them feels as some weird thing you do to your head, your ear, to make it look so. Nowadays we see some guys and gals twist up and curl up and part up and separate them here and pretty locks. I don't know what them call that thing. Black people here are locks still, you know, but we see a go on, you know, the way the thing that take away the essence from what was really originally locks as called to Rastafari, what them call dreadlocks. The reason why them call it dreadlocks, I told them they scared right. The people them was a terrible looking ear, terrible dreadlocks, terrible dread. So if we want to accept the dreadlocks, is the acceptance of just make your ear grow as how nature wants it to grow. You don't try train it and carry it somewhere else, because what's going to really happen, you're going to find, say, every time you start to that, you fight against nature, you're going to turn body like everybody else, you know, watch and see. You're going to see a whole heap of ones here. First of all, the receding is one of the first things that happen. Because everybody had twist them here, and a dry, tight, one of them head and back, and twist it. So you have pure shine forehead a walk around the place. You don't ever know so them have locks. But it's almost like a conspiracy I go out against locks again, you know. It's like if you can't beat them, you join them. So where you find a Guania so now is that all the people them who locks, well, not all the people them, people who feel say them should have locks now. Rome set it away where you can make your locks look presentable to Rome. And the way you make your locks presentable to room, it make it don't look like locks. So you have a whole heap of ways to do it now, you know, that it is acceptable to roam. It's acceptable. And them show you how to do it to make it look acceptable, because the natty Congo eye kind of locks is not acceptable. You understand? And if your locks start clump up, you have to tear that out and make it part up and twist up, and you can twist it. So everyone when we look on you so now, we have twist up them ear. If you look on them ear, it a recede. Because them are dry, tight from the forehead, go right back, it a dry, tight, it a recede. Rome, set you. And you don't even know. Me not ask you, me I tell you, so Rome set it up. Because the only reason why that start to happen that way is because them never allow the natty Congo aisle kind of locks in the workplace and in a certain place. So them did have to devise a way to make your locks be acceptable. And that is how they make it acceptable. By making you twist it, do it all sorts of things, because them know say eventually it go and drop out. Faster than how you're going to just grow and drop out. Because eventually you grow your year and it starts to drop out still. But right now, locks are drop faster than anybody before. If you look at whole heap of ones you know, a pure shine forehead them have. Where them ear used to there, a shine forehead them have they know. Yeah, you think me not notice it? Me I notice it. Pure shine forehead, I walk around the place. And them look like them don't locks now. Everybody who locks, who not have the natty Congo locks, and you know what I talk about when I say natty Congo. Natty Congo locks. But when you take off your thing, it look like a tree. It don't look like straw. You understand? It don't look like straw. It look like a tree. Like a serious tree. The locks them nowadays look like some little straw, where everybody are trying to groom them locks to make it look a certain way to be presentable to roam. That's all it is. That's all it is. How can you locks, how can our locks be presentable to roam and those scared, I go for cuss about it. I go for cuss about it. All right, sorry, whatever. I don't have to say sorry. It never come out. It never come out. I hold it back. I hold it back. How can it be presentable to Rome? This is how I'm going to make them do it. I'm going to make them twist it, turn it. That's I can accept it, because I can't take the natty Congo. You don't know me at all about when say natty Congo. The same one we only did Freda. The same one even where on the Bible talk about the man come out of the hill with 7 locks in his head. Moses come out of the hill, 7 locks in his head. Natty Congo locks. Them afraid of it. Them still afraid of it. Them still afraid of it. Them not like the natty Congo lock. Them like when your locks flowing upon your back and all of them even up. So you have some ones now cut them locks to even up the whole light. And worst of all, no, you have some locks where you shave the two sides. No, may I tell you, Rome, may I tell you, man, Rome know if you go around the thing, you know, and hook them. See, someone has shave off them locks, now shave the two sides of them locks and I keep it in the head, you know. Mohawk locks. Mohawk locks. May have some picture of some Native American. If you see them locks come right down on their knee, black Native Americans, serious time from in the cavalry times them. The man them just sit down up so, with them locks just a flow up on them knee. Now we see a whole heap of one, enough one, may I look on them, whole heap of one. It's acceptable now, very acceptable. If you want just cut them locks even, because them don't want to see one longer than one on the back. If them locks are clump up, them tear it out and twist it. Why, may I tell you why? May I tell you them know if you catch me. Them know if you catch me, man. And you can't tell nobody say something goes so, you know. They must have a motor talk about. You know, so it's a black thing. Yeah, black thing. Ethiopia. Mental music.
Just listen and I will tell you what is the talk of the town today. For in every corner that you may walk, you will see a group of people parked. They're not skylarking, they are only talking about Ethiopia. Some say they want to leave Jamaica and go back to Africa. Some talk about Ethiopia and others Liberia, but no matter where, I do not care, for I know I must be there to get my share of all the riches and delicious dishes of Ethiopia. So you can tell me about Ethiopia, for that's the place where I want to go. I keep dreaming of Ethiopia, where the milk and the honey flow. It is the land of liberty, with corn and wine awaiting me. It is a wonder, my heart keeps wonder for Ethiopia. Oh, what a glorious morning when we land on Liberia shore. Our sorrows will all be over, black man, and here we will weep no more. But if you lazy, you will sure to die, for you won't thief there nor tell no lie. It takes behavior to be your savior in Ethiopia. So you can take away me land and me dumpling, for I don't care a pick about that. But send me back to Ethiopia, make me go mark out me burial spot. For if I die before the day, my duffy will be going away. For in a sickness, about a weakness, for Ethiopia.
All throughout history, we've seen how whiteness has shaped public policy. So if you think about the Homestead Act, one of the biggest quote-unquote welfare programs in the history of the United States, we didn't call it a handout. We didn't call it welfare. We called it nation building. In the 1930s and 40s, the FHA programs, the VA loans in the 40s and 50s, the GI Bill, all of these programs which were in theory open to everyone, but in practice racially restricted to whites almost exclusively, we didn't call those handouts. We didn't call that welfare. We called that good macroeconomic policy and the building of a middle class. What it did was create opportunities for white working class and lower middle class folks in terms of housing, in terms of job access, in terms of schooling that were completely closed off to everyone else. And here we are, 100 years later, 50 years later, 30 years later, living with the legacy of that inequality, none of which has been uprooted, even with the progress that we've made. Because when you have people who have a huge head start, they're able to pass down those advantages to their kids and to their kids and to their kids. And so those disparities actually end up, in terms of wealth and assets, end up growing over time.
As Barack Obama becomes the first sitting U.S. president to visit Laos, we replay a report that looks at the legacy of the U.S. bombing in Laos. We bring you an interview with the man that first exposed the massive secret bombing of Laos.
From the Deputy Chief of Mission to Laos, testifying to the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee, this is an exact quote, when he was asked why they quadrupled the bombing of northern Laos, he said, quote, Well, we had all those planes sitting around and couldn't just let them sit there with nothing to do, unquote.
For the people of Laos, obviously, this war was no secret. Over the course of roughly a decade, the United States dropped more bombs on Laos than Germany and Japan during World War II.
President Obama visited the COPE Center that works with victims of explosives left from the Vietnam War era, providing them with prosthetic limbs, and takes part in unexploded ordnance clearing efforts.
270 million cluster bomblets were dropped on this country. For the people of Laos, the war did not end when the bombs stopped falling. 80 million cluster munitions did not explode.
Despite Obama's visit, the United States remains one of the handful of countries that continues to manufacture and sell cluster bombs to its allies such as Saudi Arabia, which is currently using them in the conflict in Yemen. This report is from 2008.
A cluster munition is a canister which is fired from an aircraft or an artillery position, which contains many small submunitions, these small munitions which then explode. And some of these canisters can contain as many as 650 of these small submunitions.
78 million unexploded cluster bombs are scattered across Laos to this day, active reminders of the Vietnam War. From 1964 to 1973, the U.S. illegally bombed the country as part of a secret war to disrupt Viet Cong supply routes into Vietnam.
In Laos, they have been everywhere at the time of the war in the 1960s and 70s. In villages, the place was basically uninhabitable because of the degree of weapons contamination and mainly cluster munition contamination.
The Lao National Unexploded Ordnance Program, or UXO, says Laos has the distinction of being, per capita, the most heavily bombed nation in the world.
ไปซับน้าละหอบเข้าไปนี่นะแต่บนบูฮูแล้วมันมีระเบิดนะเอาไปทอดขนาดนะทำระแตะบูฮูว่ามันจะบูฮูว่าปุ่มบี้บอกเรื่องเพื่อบูฮูแล้วอยู่พื้นดินนี่ลมดินนะครับพึบลงแห้งใช่ไหม
เอาจากคุกนี้มันถีบเตะนี้
People know about the dangers about this UXO, about this cluster munitions on the ground, but it's either they leave it on the ground and they will not be able to farm, or they take the risk just to be able to do some farming and plant rice.
Our belief is that it will be necessary and it's possible to prohibit perhaps more than 95% of existing cluster munitions, which means billions of submunitions that are sitting in stocks around the world.
We also interviewed the man that brought the U.S. bombing of Laos to world attention in 1969, Fred Bramfman. He passed away in 2014. This is part of our 2013 interview with Fred.
When I interviewed over 1,000 refugees from northern Laos who had had their homes and villages destroyed, tens of thousands of people murdered by U.S. bombing, the one thing I couldn't figure out was why the bombing had so increased after November 1968, when the U.S. had halted bombing over North Vietnam. All the peasants were telling me that the bombing had suddenly become 4 or 5 times greater, and I knew there was no military reason for it. It was only a few months later that I read, and this is a very important quote, from the Deputy Chief of Mission to Laos, testifying to the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee. This is an exact quote. When he was asked why they quadrupled the bombing of northern Laos, he said, quote, "Well, we had all those planes sitting around and couldn't just let them sit there with nothing to do," unquote. Now, the situation we have today is very similar. The Bush and Obama administrations have created the first U.S. force of American assassins in our history. They've also created automated machines of war called drones. They have to come up with new missions. For example, President Obama stated as recently as last month that the drone strikes are only aimed at people whose names we know, who are plotting to kill us back in America, and who we can't get any other way. This was an absolute falsehood. The evidence is overwhelming But most of the strikes, drone strikes in Pakistan, in Yemen, in Somalia, are what they call signature strikes. These are strikes against people whose names they don't know. They have no idea what their names are. They're bombing, they're drone striking them on the basis of there's a crowd of people who they decide might be hiding a militant. Now you might ask yourself, why did they go from striking named people to striking unnamed people? Why did they go, they've only been able to name 77 senior Al-Qaeda leaders and Taliban leaders by name, and they've killed 3,000 to 5,000 other people. Well, the reason is obvious. There are all these drones sitting around out there. They don't know the names of that many, quote, senior Al-Qaeda leaders. They ran out of targets, so they then decided to start killing nameless people, which both General McChrystal and the former Director of National Intelligence now tell us is infuriating the Muslim world.
From Baltimore, this is Jessel Noor.
Last night was amusing. An Englishman, me girl, by and I were gossiping. I say yes, last night was amusing. An Englishman, me girl, by and I were gossiping. He told me when he was little, he used to give his school teacher plenty trouble. Well, believe I laughed till I nearly choked when this Englishman started to sing me some jokes. He sang, there was a farmer who used to live by a creek. All his neighbors suspected he used to play with his marbles in springtime. Well, if you think I lie, you could go home and contact my girlfriend by Well, suddenly I had to stop laughing because I didn't like the way Vi was behaving, biting and pinching the stranger, gazing in his eyes as though he was tyrant power. Believe I had to distract her by grazing my walking stick on her shoulder. How you don't know? The fella caught on quick when he saw I wasn't frightened to use my stick. So he sang me, there was a lady who used to live right next door, and by her actions you could tell that she was a decent young lady. Look, Violet couldn't stand the laugh. She laughed till she bust her brassiere in half. Is then I saw he had Vio covered for incising up them things. Lord Christo ain't so backward, so I get up to make my departure, cause I couldn't stand another volley of laughter. But he begged me hard was to remain and listen to a couple more sweet refrain. He bought me some drinks, so I started to sip. But here the next joke that came from this young man's lip. He said, there was a maiden who used to swim like a duck. She taught all the young farmers the way how to bring up their children. I watched the man and shake my head. I really thought he would have said something else instead. Well, as a born and bred Trinidadian, you know I had to talk my mind as a true Calypsonian. All he sing this Englishman singing, a blind man could see his Vi was marking. I got so vexed I couldn't feel a tickle, because I know these female sex they fickle. So I held the Vio hand and told her let's go, and it's then I talk my mind in my Calypso. So I said, now look here, Mr. Englishman, you've gone far enough. Calypsonians, as a rule, don't go in for that stuff, because Violet can't swim like no duck, and tonight she cannot teach you the way to feel for your children.
This is WJTV News Channel 12 at 6.
Concentration camps. People mostly associate the term with Nazi Germany, but historians say it's true. They also existed in America. During the Civil War, authorities in Natchez, Mississippi forced tens of thousands of freed slaves into camps built in what's known as the Devil's Punch Bowl. Jacob Kittelstadt explores this forgotten history this Mystery Monday.
Untouched fruit falls to the ground near the banks of the Mississippi River.
They talk about there's the most beautiful wild peach groves
down in the punch bowls.
And researcher Paula Westbrook says, like a peach, the area known as the Devil's Punch Bowl has a pit, a mass grave from the 1860s. Historians estimate that in 1 year, up to 20,000 freed slaves died in contraband camps below these bluffs.
When the slaves were released from the plantations during the occupation, they overran Natchez. And the population went from about 10,000 to 120,000 overnight.
So they decided to build an encampment for them at Devil's Punch Bowl, which they walled off and wouldn't let them out.
Don Estes is the former director of the Natchez City Cemetery.
I just put my own tombstone right there. You see Estes?
Learning history's been his life. He says Union troops ordered recaptured black men to perform hard labor.
Straight down right here.
While women and children were all but left to die in the 3 punch bowl prisons.
Disease broke out among them, smallpox being the main one, and thousands died. They were begging to get out. Turn me loose and I'll go home back to the plantation, anywhere but there. But they wouldn't let them out.
The Union Army did not allow them to remove the bodies from the camp. They just gave them shovels and said bury them where they drop.
And I'd really like to show you more of this terrain, but it's just too thick with greenery. These bluffs are also straight down, so not only is it dangerous to navigate, it's still very mysterious back there.
It's a bed of alligators and snakes. It would take Indiana Jones to get back in there at this point.
Then you come on up washing away bluffs, and at the Devil's Punch Bowl that has so many people that no one knows how they got killed or when, and they're still down there wasted.
And even to this day, they talk about wild peach trees that come up down there, but no one in Natchez will eat them because they know what the fertilizer was.
Exploring the unexplained on Mystery Monday, Jacob Kittelstad, WJTV News Channel 12.
And historians say even now people might discover old skeletal remains after flooding on the Mississippi. But being on the Natchez Trace, sometimes it's difficult to tell which century those bones are from.
We got some glamour gal in this town. Why I tell you, them brain is sound. Them know the way to dress up in style, and them have them man all the while. That's the kind of gal they call it glamour gal, and that's the kind of gal that will always make you mad. When them fix them ear, them is a solid treat. You might not like it, but them look sweet. Them have one style them call coke and roll, another one that them call drop curl. That's the kind of gal they call it glamour gal, and that's the kind of gal that will always make you mad. Them have one style that them call up sweep, one too much that them call down sweep. Them have one style that them call page wide, another one that them call big trick. That's the kind of gal they call it glamour gal, and that's the kind of gal that will always make you mad. Then them place a black spot beside them nose, then them call that the beauty pose. And if them too black and it don't show, them put on bleaching cream, as you know. That's the kind of gal you call it glamour gal, and that's the kind of gal that will always make you mad. I run cross one Saturday night, why I never see such a pleasing sight. But when she leave me, my tab was dent. Sunday morning I pay no rent. That's the kind of gal you call it glamour gal, and that's the kind of gal that will always make you mad. Them a want something to redden them lip, them band them waist till them slim like whip. And if them chest even looking flat, new style brassiere will take care of that. That's the kind of gal they call it glamour gal, and that's the kind of gal that will always make you mad. Now listen folks to what I have to say. This country gal them have a funny way. But when them go down to wap, a jijji wap, and when you touch them, them say, no bother me. But if you want to see Kingston and wap, don't hesitate to ask them what them want. A jijji wap wap, gal, no bother me. Boomba baby, ba de boomba baby. Abli 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 abli. Ba de boomba baby. Bobby.
here, child, a blow, lo, lo. Why me say come here, child, a blow, lo, lo. Why me say come here, child, a blow, lo, lo. Old time people used to say, saltfish when they shingle house. But the way things stand today, chilling saltfish can't feed one mouth, a blow, lo, lo. Why come here, child, a blow, lo, lo. Why come here, child, a blow, lo, lo. Why me say come here, child, a blow, lo, lo. The other day me go a shop, we go buy 1 pound of butter. The Chinese man say, look ya boy, pound of gold for 1 pound of butter. A blow, lo, lo. Why come here, child, a blow, lo, lo. Why me say come here, child, a blow, lo, lo. Why me say come here, child, a blow, lo, lo. Them say money carry disease. Maybe this is true or that. Cause since Lord knows when me boy, sickness is the thing me no got. A blow, lo, lo. Why come here, child? A blow, lo, lo. Why me say come here, child? A blow, lo, lo. Why me say come here, child? A blow, lo, lo. There's 2 brother name in and out. Funniest name there is no doubt. Time so hard when you call them house. Out is in and in is out. A blow, lo, lo. Why me say come here, child? A blow, lo, lo. Why me say come here, child? A blow, lo, lo. Why me say come here, child? A blow, lo, lo. Tom and Jane go climb one tree. They go look some food to eat. The tree was weak, the branch it broke. 2 of them make one hefty drop. A blow, lo, lo. Why me say come here, child? A blow, lo, lo. Why me say come here, child? A blow, lo, lo. Why me say come here, child? A blow, lo, lo.
Continent with Mutabaruka. We are listening to our men.
We came to Levittown and we found the model house, and we walked in and we looked around, and of course in the eyes of a young man who was raised in the ghetto, so to speak, it was an interesting experience, an interesting lifestyle, seeing all the new modern conveniences. Very fascinating.
Eugene Burnett came home with almost 1 million other black GIs. They had fought for the country in segregated ranks. They returned hoping for equality and the American dream. For many, that dream was a new home for little money down and some of the easiest credit terms in history.
I went up to the salesman. We're interested in your home. We're interested in buying one. And what is the procedure? Is there an application to be filled out? So forth. So he looked at me, looked around, and he said to me, he says, listen, it's not me, but the owners of this development have not as yet decided to sell these homes to Negroes.
It was as though it wasn't real. You can't imagine. But for someone to come out and actually tell you that they can't sell to you. You know, I was really on an up. Man, look at this house. Can you imagine having this? And then for them to tell me because of the color of my skin, I can't be a part of it.
The FHA underwriters warned that the presence of even 1 or 2 non-white families could undermine real estate values in the new suburbs. These government guidelines were widely adopted by private industry. Race had long played a role in local real estate practices. Starting in the 1930s, government officials institutionalized the national appraisal system. where race was as much a factor in real estate assessment as the condition of the property. Using this scheme, federal investigators evaluated 239 cities across the country for financial risk.
So that those communities that were all white, suburban, and far away from minority areas, they received the highest rating, and that was the color green. Those communities that were all minority or in the process of changing, they got the lowest rating and the color red. They were redlined. As a consequence, most of the mortgages went to suburbanizing America, and it suburbanized it racially.
The racial logic adopts the principle that an integrated neighborhood is a bad risk, is a financial risk, that an integrated neighborhood is likely to be an unstable neighborhood, unstable socially, but therefore also unstable economically.
When the white residents of 8 Mile Road in Detroit were told they were too close to a black neighborhood to qualify for a positive FHA rating, they built this 6-foot wall between themselves and their black neighbors. Once the wall went up, mortgages on the white properties were approved. Between 1934 and 1962, the federal government underwrote $120 billion in new housing. Less than 2% went to non-whites.
I can understand an individual, depending on his environment or his family or whatever, being racist, but for your country to sanction it, give him tools to do that, there's something definitely wrong there.
You know here, continent, the end, the end.
Lord, what a night, not a bite. What a sight to the night. Lord, what a night, not a bite. What a sight to the night. Everybody come feel up, not a quatty word sell. Everybody come feel up, not a quatty word sell. Lord, what a night, not a bite. What a sight to the night. Lord, what a night, not a bite. What a sight to the night. It was a fight, a big, big fight on that Saturday night. It was a fight, a big, big fight on that Saturday night. Lord, what a night, not a fight. What a Saturday night. Lord, what a night, not a fight. What a Saturday night. Do my mommy no beat me, kill me, say come merry-go-round. Do my mommy no beat me, kill me, say come merry-go-round. Lord, what a night, not a fight. What a Saturday night. Oh, what a night, not a fight. What a Saturday night.
Over the weekend, the United States denied entry to an unsuspecting individual, former British ambassador to Uzbekistan Craig Murray, who 10 years ago made the critical mistake of exposing the Uzbek torture system that we now know the Americans supported and the British condoned. He was scheduled to participate in an awards ceremony next week, where former CIA agent and whistleblower John Kiriakou is slated to receive an award for exposing the Bush-era torture program.
We're talking about a British diplomat, a highly respected, internationally respected British diplomat, a whistleblower in his own right, an exposer of torture, who has traveled to this country dozens and dozens of times, and then, for reasons that have not been explained to him, finds himself banned by the United States.
The Sam Adams Award for Integrity and Intelligence is given out annually to someone who shows moral courage in the midst of wrongdoing on the part of the state.
In 2006, the Sam Adams Associates for Integrity and Intelligence decided to award Ambassador Murray our annual award for integrity. He came and talked at several of our Sam Adams Award ceremonies here in the States, and also at Oxford. We did 2 there. We did our last one in Berlin. We go wherever the people are.
10 years after having won the award himself, Murray is still at home wondering how his name received what the State Department and Homeland Security call a hit.
It means that the Department of Homeland Security believes that Ambassador Murray may be ineligible to enter the United States under one of the categories of ineligibility.
Peter Van Buren is a former United States Foreign Service employee turned whistleblower after he heavily criticized the United States reconstruction effort in Iraq. Van Buren also just wrote a piece for Consortium News that explains how someone like Murray may have received a hit.
But more often than not, particularly in cases like Ambassador Murray's, where there are political components, what we've got is likely a potential 3B violation or potential violation, which means terrorism. You don't have to be a terrorist to fall under this category. You can just be placed on one of these watch lists by one of the dozens of American intelligence agencies and organizations that are allowed to, quote, nominate names, and they do love their Orwellian vocabulary, nominate names to the list.
In his relatively short tenure as ambassador to Uzbekistan, Craig Murray uncovered a torture infrastructure within the country that at once silenced Uzbeki dissidents and fed the Americans shaky intelligence they were so desperate for as the war on terror in Iraq and Afghanistan began to unravel. In 2009, 5 years after Murray had left the British Foreign Office, but still 7 years away from being denied entry into the United States, Murray spoke at that year's Sam Adams Award ceremony, which took place in Washington, D.C. at American University.
You know, there are over 10,000 political prisoners in Uzbekistan. Anybody who is a religious Muslim of any kind, no connection to terrorism, anyone who prays 5 times a day as prescribed, will be arrested as a terrorist. Any young man with a beard will be arrested.
He subsequently sat down with Real News senior editor Paul Jay to expand on the disturbing revelations that ended his career as ambassador.
Many of them are killed every year. They're in terrible, literally Stalinist gulags. They are in the old Stalinist gulags, which are still there, like Jazlik in the middle of the Kizilkum desert. And people are tortured dreadfully, most appalling tortures you can think of on a routine basis. If you're arrested, you're going to be tortured, and that means you're going to have a broken bottle inserted in your anus, you're going to have your neck broken, you're going to have your feet held over a fire, you're going to be suffocated by having a blocked gas mask put on your head. Even I came across instances of children tortured in front of the parents. You shouldn't forget the purpose of the torture was to get false intelligence, which vastly exaggerated the threat from Al-Qaeda. It vastly exaggerated the strength of Al-Qaeda in Central Asia. And people knew that.
Murray saw that Western powers like the UK and the US were far more interested in profiting from Uzbekistan's oil reserves and vital geopolitical position than they were with human rights.
Uzbekistan sits at the heart of Central Asia. It has half the population of Central Asia. It really dominates the region. And Central Asia has the world's largest untapped reserves of oil and gas. So anyone who's interested in acquiring influence over hydrocarbon reserves needs to be in Uzbekistan. The Uzbek government plays this to its own advantage. The Uzbek government has no interest other than its own advantage and is quite happy to switch between different world powers as it's able to get something out of them.
Murray says that when he went over to Uzbekistan in 2002, the U.S. viewed Uzbekistan, and especially its late president Islam Karimov, who coincidentally just died last week, not only as a long-term interest in the region, but also as maybe the most important ally in Central Asia when it came to the war on terror, beyond firing off a steady stream of intelligence memos and reports to the CIA, which were then being forwarded to the British intelligence service MI6, and beyond allowing the United States to set up its crucial Karshi-Khanabad airbase. The Uzbeks were engaged in a program of extraordinary rendition with the United States of so-called suspected terrorists, and it happened to be part of a network of black sites that spanned across many countries.
The CIA were flying people in to be tortured, and I reported that officially to London in as many words. And this is in 2003, before anyone had heard the words extraordinary rendition. I didn't realise that the people being flown in were not Uzbek. The idea that strangers would be flown in to be tortured.
Now, subsequently, how do you know that that's the case? Because essentially, you're saying the CIA was flying people in to be tortured in Uzbekistan.
Yeah, I knew the CIA people who did it. There weren't many expats in Uzbekistan. You're talking quite seriously of, not including military personnel, 300 or 400 British and American expatriates in the whole of the country. So, not surprisingly, we used to drink in the same bars and meet. And I actually knew the CIA people who flew people in. Subsequently, we've learned a great deal more. For example, the Council of Europe inquiry into extraordinary rendition showed that 90% of the flights which took prisoners to the secret base in Poland at Shimano-Shimony flew on to Tashkent as their next destination. There's a great deal of other evidence that this was part of a global transportation of prisoners.
So you found out about this, you send these reports back to your home office in London, and they do what?
They told me to think more about commercial interests and less about human rights. In fact, the exact phrase was that they sent me a reply saying, "We think you are over-focused on human rights," was their exact phrase.
The experience as ambassador of Uzbekistan proved detrimental to Murray's faith in the integrity of the UK as well as the United States. In fact, the ordeal shook him so hard that he says his understanding of human beings changed.
I think my worldview has changed. I'd been a British diplomat for over 20 years, and I genuinely believed that on balance we were a force for good in the world, that I wasn't serving something which was detrimental to mankind in general. When something like that hits you, that the people you've worked with and called your friends for years and years and years are prepared to go along with something as evil as that resulted in torture and wars and death, it really does plunge you into questioning everything you ever believed in, and I still haven't really come out of that process.
As of Wednesday, over 10,000 people signed a Roots Action petition demanding Murray be let into the country. In a statement released Tuesday, members of the Sam Adams Associates for Integrity said they wondered, quote, which agency's long arms have reached out to disrupt our ceremony and to try and silence Craig. Whatever they intend, it will be bound to backfire. Murray has applied for a visa via the State Department, but that most likely won't be processed in time. And Murray himself said Wednesday that, quote, despite the highly critical things I've published about Putin, about civil liberties in Russia and the annexation of the Crimea, I've never been refused entry to Russia. The only two countries that have ever refused me entry clearance are Uzbekistan and the USA. What does that tell you? For The Real News, Thomas Hedges, Washington.
You know here, continent, the end, the end.
Way down in the bag we gone where we go play this at Julia, you know.
We down in the bag we gone quadrille. May I tell you? Quadrille music. We down in the bag we gone. When we go dig up this one here we go again. Quadrille style. Well, the slave them by mimic the slave master camp style.
Dreadlocks, you're not living a tenement yard. Dreadlocks, you're not living a tenement yard. Dreadlocks, you're not living a tenement yard. Because they choose you, they know what you want to, what you want to do. They know what you want to, what you want to meditate. Down in a tenement yard, like the baby. Down in a tenement yard, to meditate. Down in a tenement yard, no, no.
man, you look me hungry. Yeah, man, who don't make me hungry. Tracy who got from 12 o'clock. With the band who own our nights. Yes, Matrix in the house, you know, so we're going to forward there, so from 2 to 5:45 with the stepping razor. The art of war. We hope you enjoy what we have to offer you tonight. Different kind of program. Tribute to Miss Lou, our Earth Day. Playing Miss Lou views. Bringing you, carrying your way back into the past. Before Matrix born. When the mother was a girl. You understand? And me know if she'll listen, she's supposed to love it. Believe you me. Bring back memories in our life. And now we're playing Mentor music. From them time until now. Mentor music. Remember, Peter Tosh Earth Day, Saturday. Ethiopian New Year, Saturday.
Well, first of all, there is no police brutality in America. We ended that back in the 60s.
I wasn't a victim of police brutality. I got my ass whooped.
by the police before.
Yeah.
But you know why? Because I was belligerent.
Okay.
I was belligerent and I was conducting myself like a nigger.
I don't think all cops are bad. You know, I think there's some great cops out there who do everything in their power to uphold the badge. And
I face more danger and I feel more danger putting on my uniform every day and going into the American ghetto to police. And as a black victim, and I've talked to a lot of black victims of crime, they face more fear and danger at the hands of other black people in terms of victimization, in terms of crime, than they do from some anomaly and an outlier where some kook goes into a church and sprays the place up with bullets, killing people who are in prayer.
Sexual assault is a part of black history. It truly is.
You know, you don't sit up there and gloss over police brutality, but at the same time, we have a bigger problem in the black community, and that's black on black crime.
For me, there is a larger issue when we talk about rape, the rape culture in our country, and particularly in the black community.
But we keep screaming Black Lives Matter. If they really matter, then let's do ourselves a favor. Let's stop killing black folks.
I think as long as we have black on black crime and black, you know, one black man killing another, you know, if Black Lives Matter, then they should matter all the time.
Slavery was about togetherness, and understand that we must overcome together. Not that we must separate ourselves to highlight our skin color. If we want to highlight our skin color, highlight the people that's doing the successful things in the communities that we should be highlighting.
It is entirely appropriate that the mayor of Baltimore, who I spoke to yesterday, and my understanding is you've got some of the same organizers now going back into these communities to try to clean up in the aftermath of a handful of protesters, a handful of criminals and thugs who tore up the place.
So you say there shouldn't be a BET change?
No, I don't think so, no. Just like there shouldn't be a Black History Month. You know, we're Americans, period, that's it.
Are you saying there shouldn't be a Black History Month because there isn't a White History Month?
Exactly, exactly.
It was like Stacey Dash said that it shouldn't be no BET, everybody should be Americans. And I was like, if she said that, then I feel like I agree with that, because it's only two type of people in life: real people and fake people.
Right.
They got these people talking about all black, man, Black Lives Matter, man, all lives matter.
Like, anytime that someone is dealing with children and they are not doing their job, that they should be held accountable, especially when a child loses her life.
Set today for arraignments on charges of official misconduct in the second degree.
Victor Holt and Reginald Wyndham were working at the Lincoln Village Juvenile Detention Center in Hardin County when 16-year-old Janiah McMillan died there. The Kentucky medical examiner says she died from a heart condition in January. However, state officials say the two men falsified documents at the facility and did not adequately supervise the teen.
No, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And I feel like if something was wrong with her heart, it's because of the stress or the physical altercation or whatever they did when they restrained her.
According to investigators, a martial arts hold was used on the 16-year-old but had nothing to do with her death. McMillan was taken to the detention center from Shelbyville after an altercation with her mother.
She's hurting. You know, she's hurting. Not only, you know, just the last incident, but she'll never see her daughter again.
McMillan's loved ones are fighting for justice. Armed with signs, they stood in front of the Hardin County Courthouse Friday to rally for support. They're hoping for a fair outcome in the case.
I am very concerned that they will not be held accountable and receive the proper punishment for what they did, because it seems like it's irregular for officers, people who work in state facilities and government not to be held accountable.
you?
Well, I'm here. Let's put it that way. Olivia Hooker. Hooker. H-O-O-K-E-R.
I heard you from Oklahoma.
Yep, I'm from Tulsa.
You're the original survivor.
That's right.
Tell me a little bit about your story.
Yes, you do.
Wait a minute, before you do.
Well,
I'm 77.
Well, I'm 95, and I was 6 years old at the time of the disaster. I refused to call it a riot because it was really, whites decided to burn down the homes of 10,000 people. So that was not a riot. It was planned desecration. And so we were just small children. And my family had not told me about prejudice and hate and things like that. I thought everything in the preamble to the Constitution referred to me. I didn't find out until this terrible night that they...
This was a very prosperous community?
Yes, and they used to call it Black Wall Street. But it wasn't Wall Street, but, it was a prosperous community. But it was all 10,000 people, counting all the children and grown-ups who were made homeless by this riot, so what they called a riot. And it was 80 years before the state of Oklahoma actually had a commission to study it and remove the blame from us as victims and put the blame where it belonged on the Ku Klux.
What year was this?
1921. And my sisters and brothers knew about prejudice and things, but at that time I thought everything that we were taught at school actually existed. And so it was more devastating for me because it was such a shock. And when the mobs came in, they had those pine, knots all lighted up, and they set things on fire. And my mother refused to run because she was busy putting water on the house to try to keep it from burning. And so she put the children under the big oak table. They had those great big tables in those days with little nooks under them. So we were under the table when the mobs came in, and my mother had said, well, we have to eat no matter what, so she was cooking. And
that is true.
They got so angry that she had what she called her three-cornered pots on the stove, and she had something different in each pot. So they took those out and threw them in the backyard. Then they came back and took the beautiful brown biscuits out of the oven and took them out and smashed them in the mud. And see, we're under the table looking at all this. And so it was very devastating for me because I hadn't known about those things. See, the only non-black people that I ever saw were people who wanted to sell my father things for his store. And they brought presents for the children and listened to my sister play the piano, how salesmen behave. I thought that's the way all non-black people behaved. I had no idea. And when they broke up my mother's Caruso records, and that broke her heart, but they didn't break the old rugged cross. You see, they're giving you a message. The old rugged cross, you see. See, they're giving you a message, what you should and shouldn't have. And they took the hatchets and chopped my sister's piano, but they didn't know that it's the sounding board in the piano that is important. So they chopped the outside of the piano, and it didn't affect the tone of it, and they took my mother's luggage, but they didn't take my sister's little wicker basket. They took my mother's pigskin luggage. But being a psychologist...
You're a psychologist?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I received my PhD at the University of Rochester.
Jesuits, New York State, yeah. Wow, my goodness. As a psychologist, you came to the New York area, right?
Well, I came to go to Columbia University.
You went to Columbia
after the war, after World War II.
I remember World War II.
And so I stayed because I was licensed in New York.
Wow. Did you work in the New York area for an agency or for the school system? Or?
Yes, I was the chief psychologist at the Kennedy Child Studies Center.
No.
And, but I also taught at Fordham in graduate school.
Wow.
So I retired from those two jobs.
Oh my goodness! Wow, that's very impressive. I have psychologists in my family, but Fordham and the Kennedy Study Center is very well known. It's prestigious. So you basically were teaching or treating a lot of children as well as adults.
Yes, I was teaching. We were training school psychologists.
You were training school psychologists?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. He wants to know your experience in the Coast Guard. That was 41 to 45, right?
Yeah, well, I went in. I didn't go in till 45.
You went in 45?
Because they weren't taking black women in the Navy. See, the Coast Guard's part of the Navy during war.
Was it?
And so they were not taking blacks. But Mrs. Bethune and Mrs. Roosevelt started campaigning, and so finally the Secretary of the Navy was Forrestal. He decided, I'm going to take them in and let these two ladies get off my back. But I waited to see who would join after we worked so hard to get the barrier removed. Nobody joined. So finally I said...
I remember there was a singer in the Stork Club, Lena Horne. Was that, do you remember that? That was also that.
Yeah. Well, I decided, well, maybe if I join and if I live, some others will come, But there were eventually only 5 black girls joined.
That was SPARS.
Yeah, SPARS.
My sister wanted to join, but I guess didn't. That was very gutsy. I mean, that's...
So those 5, they remained close friends until...
Still around?
No, 3 of them are dead now. There's just 1 left alive.
Say your name. Just make it. Olivia Hooker.
Olivia J. Hooker. Hooker.